Welcome to the Boss Dude Lifestyle Show, the show about learning what it takes to build a superior you, mentally, physically, and financially. Today, we have Greg, the founder of G-Code. We're going to dig into what G-Code is, how they got started, and all about supplement companies. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited. Tony made this introduction. You guys already seem to have a little bit of a relationship.
We go way back.
Yeah, 5 years now.
Yeah?
So I met Greg like on the first week of us buying Brigantine. So we're like balls deep into trying to start this gym up and getting it cleaned and ready for people to come through and see that we're changing it and care. And then he walks in with like a box of supplements. He's like, "Hey, I'm Greg. I own G-Code Nutrition." He's like, "This is my gym." And I'm like, "How's it going?" I said, "I just bought this gym.
How's your gym?
But let's hear this out." He's like, he grew up at Brigantine, and that was the gym that he worked out at, and kind of fell in love with bodybuilding.
Yeah, man.
Actually, there was a framed photo of you behind the desk, like just chilling when we took over.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was nice that somebody else had history in the space that actually gave a shit about it. And then we kind of just became friends from there, man. Like, started selling your stuff. I like your stuff. We use it every day. But more than that, we kind of like just the personality and the interactions that we get because it's always real and genuine.
Well, you know, like when I realized Tony and Trish were buying Brigantine, right, the Brigantine Fitness Center, which became the first Wolf Fitness, I took it personally, right, because like we talk about like the G-Code brand and like sort of who I am as a man at this point in my life, and like a lot of that, the roots of it were in Brigantine at that exact gym, that physical space, right? So when I heard you guys were buying and taking over, I went there like with all the best hopes, but a little trepidation because I'm like, oh man, like I hope these guys, you know, sort of keep the spirit of the place intact, but improve it in all the ways that it so desperately needed to be improved. So I went there sort of thinking like this is an important alliance in my life because, you know, I want to be here when these guys make this transition and create this new place. And I want our brand to be a part of it because this place is literally like sort of baked into the DNA of our brand.
Is that where you started lifting for the first time?
So, you know, I was like an aspiring athlete growing up, like so many are, right? Where, you know, regardless of the fact that I was a 5'10" kid from Brigantine, I thought I was going to play in the NBA, right? But sort of all these kind of wild, ambitious dreams that were related to athletics and whatnot translated to a lot of that sort of like self-actualizing training. Right, and a lot of it, like initially, was, you know, as basic as it gets. Right, in your bedroom at night, you know, going to the basketball court and doing drills, and you know, going running on your own, you know, and being in your garage. You know, I talked my mom into buying me my first weights set. Right, now I had like a Hulk Hogan weight set when I was a little kid, all that stuff. But like my first actual weight set was from a department store at the Shore Mall. And for like, which is pretty close to where Wolf Fitness is, like for the first year and a half, I just trained, you know, alone in my bedroom and kind of taught myself about weight training. And that was like when I was like 15, and then that following summer, for my birthday, my mom bought me a 6-week membership to the Brigantine Fitness Center, which was like a mile walk from my house.
And what age was that?
16.
Okay.
And basically from the time I was 16, in that first year I talked Ed into giving me a job. And then basically from the time I was like 16 or 17 until I was like 27 and I moved to Pennsylvania with Tara, we moved in together. I basically like worked a shift somehow even through college and all that stuff, like every couple weeks or month or whatever for like 10 years. So like the entire process of like sort of really falling in love with training and bodybuilding and nutrition and the lifestyle in general and all those things, like it all happened there, you know, and really in those like really important formative years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like a lot of people who get into lifting somewhere around 15 to 16, you're able to build that confidence, you're able to build a foundation that you can use for the rest of your life.
Of course, it translates to everything. It touches every aspect of your life. You know, it's
only
one part of it's physical. You know,
it's social, it's emotional, it's mental, it's physical.
Yeah.
I mean, that gym was the gym where you walk in and there's like 3 or 4 T-shirts hanging from a hanger on a piece of like metal rebar.
Yep.
And on the front, it says like Brigantine Island Fitness or whatever it was, and then on the back it was like the big arm flexing. It says no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn,
that's my kind of place.
Cool,
yeah.
school fucking gym.
Yeah.
Like
Very
we walked
much so.
into that gym, and I was like, we've said this before. I looked around and I was like, I mean, I love the gym because it was old school. And
Yeah.
that's what I grew up doing.
Sure.
Like, it was like the old school Y that I worked out at in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. It just had everything that you needed, nothing that you really didn't.
Right.
It just had that like aura to it.
Yes,
and so
very much so.
No, I appreciate where that gym was when we found it. I love it more where it's at now, but that gym had good roots.
That's it, and I feel like a little bit of that aura was like, it's almost like metaphysical or spiritual, right? Because there was like a lot of people, like we had like a little culture of
Yeah.
a crew there for like a decade who really trained really hard there, and like would even promote the place and talk about the place in a way that was like not in keeping with really how nice of a place it was, but like we felt like there were, you know, people from like in our broader circles who might have been from Philly or North Jersey or whatever,
Right.
who were like, oh yeah, if I go down to Atlantic City, that's where I gotta go
It's easy
train.
to hype up a space
You
you care
know,
about.
that's it.
It's easy to hype
That's
up a
what it
space
is when you
care
care,
about.
right?
And if that's all you know too, like
That's it.
that's where you grew, that's where your foundation is.
And
I
it
had the
becomes
same gym,
special
yeah.
no matter how humble it is,
When
right?
you walk into it today, it's still home to you.
Oh, very
That's
much
like
so.
the metaphysical
Very
part.
much
It's
so.
like your energy's still there from when you were back
Very
home.
much
Yes,
so.
yeah.
Very much so. I talk about how like I can think about it, right, and I can remember what the drinks tasted like. I can remember the music I was listening to. I could remember like smelling the salt air
Yeah.
walking to the gym when I was 16. You
Yeah.
know, and it's still like that. And when I go down to visit, I come see you guys, I still walk up those steps and I still
Oh,
have
yeah,
all
man.
those same sense memory.
Yeah, I don't think people understand like that. Don't get into it. The symbiotic relationship you have and like that foundation, like that church feeling.
Oh,
almost. It's like
very
your
much
church.
so. Very much so.
It's where you get everything out, your stress, your whatever. You meet with
Yeah.
your friend who you
I mean,
lived
people
with.
actually refer to it as that, which I think is great.
Yes.
They're getting what they need from a space, and that's what that's
It's
pretty
almost
much what
making
it
you
is.
better. What difference does it make?
Yeah, it's progressing you forward one way or another.
Very much so.
Now, when did G Code start out of all of this?
So G Code started in right around now.
What were you doing before G Code? Actually,
Okay.
Oh,
All right. Yeah.
Because I forgot we mentioned
Right,
briefly, but I didn't
yeah.
actually-
So for 11 years, and then like 2 years prior to that, doing freelance and filmography, videography, editing, that kind of stuff, and writing. I worked for Universal Nutrition and Animal,
Mhm.
which is a, you know, sort of a legacy brand that
Animal
was
Pack?
started in
Yeah.
it started in 1977, and it's still around to this day, still going strong to this day. And for more than a decade, I kind of started there semi entry level. I started there. I saw an ad in a bodybuilding magazine that when these ads first debuted, they were black and white. They were sort of gritty. They were very East Coast, very working class. And I saw those ads and I thought to myself, wow, that kind of speaks to me in a way that none of this other stuff in this magazine really does, like aesthetically. So I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, man, you know, like I'm,
like what you're doing.
yeah, just like an info email. You know, you figure it's like throwing a."
Shoot your shot.
Yeah, it's
It's
it,
like trying to
right?
pick up
I
a girl,
said,
you know
that's
what I mean?
I said it's like putting a letter out in a bottle and throwing it into the water. But I figured whatever, right? So I send an email and I say, "Hey, man, you know, like I'm a writer. You know, I'm like 225. I train every day. You know, I live this life 24/7. I'm in love with the sport and the lifestyle and all those things. I'm a filmmaker. I do all these things. I bring all this stuff to the table. Super in every aspect of this. Has got to be something I can do for you guys." So luckily enough, they got back to me and they said, "Hey man, come up. You know, we'll talk shop." They're based out in New Brunswick. They said, "Hey, why don't you come up and talk shop?" Came up, hit it off, and for like a year and a half or so, I was like working the major trade shows for them, and then like just writing articles for their website. I'm getting paid for it and getting free supplements. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
like, you can't beat this.
My
You know,
dream.
I'm in my early 20s.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing better than this, right? And then that sort of translated into like an entry level position where I started in like 2005 or so. I started and I was doing pretty much everything related to marketing in the company in one way, shape, or form. Like had my hands in something, and it was like a marketing specialist was the
Yeah.
title. And then I was there for 11 years, really through like their sort of meteoric rise. And when I left there, I was the director of the animal brand. And it was, for a couple of years prior, as great an opportunity as it was and as fond as I was of many of the people that I worked with, as thankful as I was for every opportunity that came out of it, I also felt like I was sort of wedged up against the glass ceiling. I would joke around, I'd say I was like this against the glass ceiling there for a while. Because no matter how much I contributed, right, no matter how much I created, it could never be mine.
Right.
And that was a tough thing for a guy like me to deal with every day because like I said, and it wasn't because I wasn't grateful for every opportunity. It was more because I felt like I was capable of more.
Well, it's like chiefs and Indians, right? There's two types of people. You're either a chief, you're a leader by example. People want to follow you because of who you are and what you
Right.
set forward.
Right.
Or you're an Indian, which is, there's nothing wrong with either one, right? But you're wedged up a glass ceiling.
Right.
There's no way to breach through that as the Indian. As a chief, acting like an Indian, it was only a matter of time until you broke out.
Right, and
Yeah.
like, you know, I was sort of struggling with that because I also felt like there's people who aren't even aware of that. There's probably a bunch of other people out in the world right now who are in that same position, but they're not bothered by it or whatever. For
That's
whatever reason,
perfect. Yeah,
for whatever
exactly.
reason, I was like tormented by it, and I'm like, all right, like, you know, and part of it too, I think, comes back to like your expectations for yourself, and I think back to like the 15-year-old kid walking to the gym in Brigantine and like what he expected out of life.
Which is crazy to think about because a 15-year-old to walk into the gym,
Yeah.
your brain is in like outer space,
Yes.
like with just dreams and like
Yes.
unlimited
Yes.
amounts of energy.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
And I live part of my life like, as weird as it sounds, right? Like I live a part of my life like not wanting to let that kid down.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things, right, where it's like, you know, I can continue to do well here and provide for my family and check all of those important boxes, but there's going to be a part of me that's sort of unfulfilled in like a really powerful way, and that I couldn't abide it much longer. I also spent a lot of my like adult life and even probably my teenage years, right, like speaking with a certain rhetoric about like chasing your dreams and like living to a certain standard, right, to a code, right, and holding yourself to a higher standard and what you expect out of life and doing whatever it takes and all of those things, right, all this rhetoric that my friends used to hear, that I used to write, that I used to, you know, my family would hear, and I think I created one sort of expectations for them about what I wanted out of life, but then two, I think I also set a certain standard in my head, right? Where when the opportunity came to start G-Code, when those wheels started to crank in my head about this opportunity and the potential for this and making this move, I thought to myself, man, like if I don't do this, the rhetoric of the last 20 years was bullshit.
I'm living a lie. Yeah.
You know, and like I'm the type who, you know, whatever you want to call it, whether that's being idealistic or romantic or whatever it is, like that would have really bothered me to be that guy who talked the talk but then didn't have the balls.
Well, that's
to back
like
it
the
up.
original FOMO, right? Before FOMO was a thing, fear of
Right,
missing
sure.
out.
Yes.
It's when do you take the step? When do you either drink the fucking Kool-Aid
Yeah.
and you become the person who follows,
Right,
or you fucking say no thank you and
Right.
become the person who leads.
right,
And you said code like a minute ago,
yeah,
a code that you had kind of made for
Yeah.
yourself to live by.
yeah,
So do you want to follow by you live by your own standards or not?
right.
You know?
Yeah, no, and I mean that's like, you know, that's sort of at the essence of G-Code, right? So like for a couple years prior to actually starting G-Code, we had built, I had written a script about a bodybuilder from Jersey, right? And it was kind of like, I said like American History X meets Rocky meets the wrestler.
I was just thinking like Rocky. It's so
Rocky the wrestler and American
Yeah.
History X, if they were all kind of together, it's kind of like that when I describe it to people, right? So I still have the script. I think it could be something amazing. But anyway, I wrote this script and we had made a couple indie films prior, right? Like Once is like the sole purpose of our lives. Myself and my associate Mark Bernardi, who's the director of operations for G-Code to this day. He and I wrote these scripts together, and I wrote this Go Hard script, and in sort of my frustration for trying to like raise money to make another film through traditional means, I came up with the idea like, all right, what if I did this backwards and took sort of all the ideas and imagery and the stuff that's baked into this script and created like a lifestyle brand around it, right? And the script, the film concept was called Go Hard. So what we did was we started to make sort of graphics and made an Instagram, and then myself and Travis, who's the art director for G-Code to this day, he and I sort of moonlighting while we were working our full-time jobs at Universal Animal.
He worked there with you too?
He worked there with me,
Oh,
yes.
right
He
on.
was in the art department, and we hit it off, and we trained together, and you know, when you're training with somebody,
Oh,
you start
yeah.
to share your ideas and
Feel comfortable.
your
That's like talking
dreams
to
and
like a
yes.
legit blood brother
Exactly.
or sister in the gym.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
you're
and
safe.
and he and I were on the same page. So I kind of pitched him this idea, like, what if we just kind of start this thing? We start to create art and the written word and then maybe apparel and stuff, and it's all around the concept of this film, and then maybe that creates the opportunity to make the film as opposed to making the film and then making all the merchandise afterwards. What if we made the merchandise and the hype before?
Yeah, like a reverse GoFundMe.
Yes, exactly. So we went down that road, and it got a nice little underground following, and we would do clothing drops, and we made some really compelling, just like graphic art, and it led me to write the sort of like take cues from friends and family over the years, and sort of like decide I was going to write like a motivational book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always sort of good at like this medium form kind of prose, right? So it was the idea. I was like, all right, I'm going to write 12 essays and make a book out of it, and we're going to sell the book through the Go Hard brand, and then who knows what that'll be, but maybe that'll then lead to something else cool, right? So like with the Go Hard Instagram, it was kind of like Travis. I would conceptualize these sayings and this artwork, and then I would write the captions, and Travis would create the art.
What year is this?
13, 14, 15.
So Instagram
16?
is fresh.
Fresh,
That's
yeah.
a new medium. At the time.
14, 15, 16,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like we would joke around that I was the blurb god and he was the meme god, and we would make these graphics and the captions and all that sort of stuff, and that sort of eventually led, long story short, led to creating this book called The G Code.
Okay.
Which was lessons for living an extraordinary life in the real world, right?
G
And
not meaning Greg, G meaning Go Hard.
G meaning Greg, just because people would call me G my whole
Yeah.
life growing up, and it was kind of like, well, this is my
Synopsis
code,
of
right? This is
And
my
it's
code.
like being a G was
Exactly,
a thing. Yeah,
exactly,
so
right.
it's
Because
like
then
a
there's
whole-
also like the for like G code being the code of the streets and that sort of thing. So there's like a double entendre to
Yeah.
it. So I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. So we'll call this book The G Code, and it's like lessons for living an extraordinary life in the real world is the idea. And it's not so much about like me being like some self-help guru, because I'm not that at all. It's more like your buddy telling you the things that he's learned along
Yeah.
the way and how they've served him well.
Yeah.
And maybe that makes you kind of think about yourself and your code and how you see yourself,
Just
right?
imparting some knowledge.
Exactly,
from past
exactly,
experience.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then you kind of create your own code from that, right? So wrote 2 of those. We have a third that we never published, but we will eventually.
That's important though, because you're talking about shit that you actually know about or
Right.
lived through.
Right.
I'm a huge,
That's all it was, like, life experience and just like perspectives,
Yeah, like I'm more apt to read a book that way from
Right.
somebody who I know has gone through the crucible to get to where they're at now, than a book of somebody who fell into money,
Sure.
and this is just another lever for them to pull
Sure,
to
sure, sure.
funnel cash their way.
Right, sure.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people who want to start a supplement company, a gym brand. So it's like having somebody who's done what you've done.
Right.
They can read your stories and be
Or
like,
any-
if he
yeah,
can
any
do this,
business
I
at
can
all.
do this.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like when
Yeah.
you're in that same field,
Oh,
it
yeah.
really is like, well, if he can do this, when you read his stuff, you connect to you as a human instead of the guy who created this business.
Right, and sort of like that was all in the process of everything too, right? Like, I would like to think that 10 years from now I could write a G Code book that was more like from the mountaintop. But everything that I've written to date, everything that I've shared with people to date has been more like kind of like
Past to today.
in the process,
The
and
climb.
it's all
It's
about
more
the
of
that's
the
it.
climb than the top.
That's all it is, man. Every day is the climb, and it's like, and even that stuff was in the climb, and like that. I wrote that, and then I wrote a second version of the second volume of it, and the second volume of it was cool because I wrote it under really difficult circumstances, right? Where I was starting to think about G Code,
Mhm.
the brand, doing Go Hard, working a full-time job. I had a 15-year-old, a 20-month-old, and just had twins.
Oh,
Okay.
shit.
So you walked away from your paychecks, right? You walked away from your paycheck to do this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wrote that second book on no sleep. We were living in a condo, which was like, at one point it was 2 bedrooms in my office, but then it became 3 bedrooms and no bedroom for me
Kitchen
and
table.
Tara, right? And I was sleeping on the floor for 22 months, right? And in that process, I wrote that second book, and that one was raw, and it was like much more, it was just a reflection of my state of mind
Just
every
to
day.
perform for
Yeah.
where you were.
And in the process of all that, at the same time, that sort of hunger inside me grew to want to do this more and more and more.
What year is this now?
16?
16.
Yeah, 15 is 16. And then, you know, you know how this stuff sort of works, but in the process of all of this ambition, all of these things, and all of these ideas, you know, it led to certain opportunities that allowed me to sort of present this idea I had for the G Code brand that was sort of rooted in the time at the Brigantine Fitness Center, right, and all those experiences, and then the 11 plus to 13 years working at Universal and Animal, and then the developing of the Go Hard brand, and then all the indie film stuff I did, and then all the writing stuff I did. And, you know, by the time I left Universal and Animal, you know, I joke about it and I said it's like having an 11-year Apple internship,
Right.
and then
It's like a degree.
wanting to start a tech company.
Yeah.
You know, that's almost what it was. You
Yeah.
know, so like by the time I had left, you know, that job with Universal, I had done everything from answering the phones to writing national ads to shooting and editing and basically starting the video department there, to designing clothing, to designing labels, to formulating products, to doing grassroots work. Like every single aspect of anything that somebody could do in marketing for any kind of company, I had done in the time that
So
I was
you
there.
got paid to get an education in
Yes,
what you're doing today.
very much so.
'Cause
Very
that's,
much
I
so.
mean, that's like awesome.
Very
you
much
can't
so.
beat that.
Very much so. And it's like, you know,
Life experience plus a paycheck.
Yeah.
no, that's it, and that's why, like I said, to this day, I'll forever be so thankful and grateful for every opportunity that came out of it. Even though, like I said, I felt those feelings of frustration and
Sure.
whatnot over the process, because, you know, towards the end there, I felt like I had much more to contribute. You know, so yeah, so you know, from that, took a leap of faith in March of 2017, at the beginning of March 2017, basically day one of our brand was the Arnold Classic 2017. So we're getting ready right now to go to the Arnold Classic this week.
Year 5, right?
Year 6.
6. Yeah, last year was 5.
Yeah.
So did you quit as you started like the actual supplement company, the G
Yes,
Code?
yes.
So you quit and you had no
I ran.
what was your plan on income?
Basically how it worked was I had run for like 2 or 3 years. We had this lifestyle brand that we were running like sort of on the side, on the low, like where I would have gotten a lot of pushback.
Oh, from corporate?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
For doing my own thing, you know, in any way, shape, or form. And I often felt like that sort of tension that they knew, like, you know, Greg might want to. I feel like he, you know, there was
It's not all in.
Well, I was.
Well, I meant like in,
Well,
in the universal
I was
name.
doing everything I possibly could to do the best job I possibly could every day, but I did want more, and I was actively pursuing. I said there's 168 hours in the week, right?
Yeah.
So I was actively pursuing
The other 128 hours.
those opportunities to try
Yeah.
to do more, you know. And so 2017, we launched the G Code brand, and you know, it's been an uphill fight. It's been a learning process. It's been everything that you would imagine, you know, for 6 years, where, you know, I said you get your sea legs, right? Because you can't ever get too hyped when you're up, and you can't ever get too low when you're down, because it's just the process, you know. And it's like, I also went into the process like of having what I thought like really well sharpened swords in certain aspects, and like no experience at all in others. Like I became a sales guy by default. It's not like my dad fed us as a kid as a salesman, but that was not my life experience at all.
Yeah, especially doing
Yeah,
video.
that was one of the things you didn't mention you did.
Yeah, because I didn't.
Yeah.
Right? So we launched that brand, and like I kind of quickly learned, like, oh man, like if we're gonna gain any traction, it's gonna be up to me, like
Pound
becoming that guy.
Yeah.
You know, and to this day, like I realized that for us to be one of the big brands in the industry, like that aspect of what we do just has to grow and grow and grow even more. You know what I mean? So it's like you see like all the ways that we're super strong, like, and then all the ways that we still need to grow. And one of those is like sort of one of the things that we didn't have when we started the thing, which was like this like obvious sales history and experience.
Right.
And you see, like, I think it probably cuts across industries, right? But a lot of these startups, one of the major components of their success is having some sort of already built-in sales infrastructure to like
a pipeline.
transfer. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like we didn't have that, so like that's still in process.
Still
you know?
figuring it out.
Exactly, and you know, trying to figure out that balance between growing direct to consumer and growing
Even
vendors.
distribution hubs had
Very
to be
much
hard, right?
Yeah, of course.
So now it's 2017.
Yes.
You started G Code.
Yes.
How the fuck did you make a formula for supplementations? If that, I mean, your background was in pushing animal packing.
Right. Sure.
Stuff,
Yeah.
But was it in any? Were you part of the formulas in any of that stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Sometimes.
were.
Yeah. Sometimes because I was so deeply sort of
Because I
entrenched.
look at the fucking labels and I'm like, your stuff's clean, so it's easy to read.
Yeah.
But like some of the shit that I look at, I'm like, what the fuck is in here?
Well, all right, what's funny is that I was so like deeply entrenched in it all because I actually lived it. That I had a personal interest in new supplements, new ingredients that were going to help me and with my training. Everybody wants to get jacked. What can I,
Right.
what's coming out, what's new, what's fresh, and I always was just, in tune with that in terms of new ingredients, new formulations, what the competition was doing.
Yeah.
Everything that we did in my time at Universal Animal, all of those things. And then also, I always, I feel like some of the best products are created, or even innovations in the world in whatever industry, out of necessity.
Yeah.
Right? And either out of necessity or out of the thought that you have, like, oh man, like, I would really benefit if this thing existed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, if I made a pre-workout, I would want it to be like this and feel this way.
yeah.
Right? Oh, like if I made a greens product, I would want this, and this to be in it. Or just the thought, like, man, I would really benefit from a greens product. Or like, oh, I'm using this product and then I mix it with this and this. Well, what if that was just one thing? And I found myself thinking like that a lot. Like a perfect example is our amino product, Rise. Like a lot of the time I would, and buddies will tell you, like I would come up with my own concoctions. And a lot of the time it would be like the combination of like an amino product, like a BCA or EAA product. And I would mix it with Airborne, like the immune support
the tablets.
and a Gatorade.
Yeah.
And mix it all together, and then it would be like this concoction that I had created, which was aminos and like immune support vitamins and herbs and stuff, and then sports drink for hydration. So Rise is an amino product with a sports drink with immune support.
How do you take that? Who do you call? How do you create it? Like, you're obviously not making chemicals in your basement.
No, I'm not. No, so no, I'm not creating, bottling, or manufacturing G-Code products in my basement. Well, basically how it works, right, is that there almost is a spectrum of like what these companies in our industry do and represent, and how much of the ownership of the process they take on themselves, right? So like for us, we pretty much do every single aspect of our brand's work, except for the actual thing that you just talked about, which is the blending and mixing and bottling of the product. Yes. So, and then there's other companies who are just a sales company or just a marketing company, and then somebody else handles every other aspect of what they do, right? But for us, basically, what we do is I will formulate the products, and then basically it's like conceive a product, right, based on a specific need, right? Whether it's a need by the absence of that kind of product in our line, whether it's something that you're recognizing in the industry that is a void that you could fill, or just like, man, I would really benefit from this thing in my training every day, in my daily life, right?
If you'll use it personally, more than likely somebody else will.
That's it. And that's like, that's one of the standards. That's one of the standards.
And like, if you show up in a Honda and you're selling fucking Fords, people are gonna know.
Of course.
So if you're not a proponent to what you're making,
no, you have to
an end user.
You have to live it every single day, right? Not only the president, I'm also a client. Like, if you don't live that every single day, like you don't live your brand, like people feel that. They understand that. Oh, this guy doesn't really do it. Like, if you saw,
I've never not seen you in G-Code from head to toe or wrists.
Yeah.
The only thing that I've never seen G-Code on you are your shoes, but you always have fresh shoes.
Yeah, well, it's funny. That's part of growing up a ball player, right? But that's the funny thing, right? Is that like I was even thinking about that the other day. I was thinking about like instances where I'll leave the house and I won't have something G-Code on, right? And it's like all right, so I have the tattoo there, so it's always with me, right? And I have bracelets on all the time, so that's always with me. But like, in an instance where I'm wearing a Wolf shirt, which I'll do, right? There's like a few gyms I'll wear those shirts, right? Like random oddball, like old wrestling t-shirt I might wear or something like that, right? In those instances, I always say I have to have a G-Code hat on. Like, I couldn't wear like a shirt from a gym and my sweatpants and whatever, and and sneakers, and then just like have my hair done.
Yeah.
Like, oh well, if I'm wearing that shirt, then I have to have a hat on because
It's
I
all
have to have the brand. I have to have the brand
You are
represented.
the
in something.
brand,
That's
yeah.
it. That's it. You know, and it's
Well,
like
it's also because people identify you as that as well.
sure.
Because they know when they see you, okay, I know who that is. It's
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, it's like 25/8/366, and I want to deliver that authenticity to people. But back to what you guys were asking, though, just about what happens, like, so essentially they'll come up with the formula, come up with the specific purpose of the product, conceptualize, whether it's me by myself or with Mark and Travis, sort of conceptualize the name, right, what the packaging would look like, those sort of things. And then there's essentially what are called contract manufacturers in our industry, of varying reputation. And we work with several. We work with an incredible one currently. And what I would do is I would reach out to them and say, hey, I'm working on this product. This is the general concept. These are the ingredients I want in and how much of them. And then that process sort of looks like them getting me pricing,
Yeah.
and them working on samples. And I would a lot of the time most of the time I would also say, and I'd like to see it in this flavor, that flavor, and that flavor. Can you get me samples? And then that's a process of a couple weeks. And then there's testing, which is testing for efficacy and seeing, taste testing, seeing what it tastes like, seeing, how I feel about the quality of that product. And then sort of just kind of goes from there, and then it's a matter of developing a label, writing every aspect of the label, designing the label with Travis, all of the bullet points, all of the rhetoric on the label, right? Getting the proper
The sex appeal of the label.
all of that, which is incredibly important to
Yeah.
us. Like, we take that stuff really seriously, the general branding and the vibe of and the presentation of the product. And then getting the actual supplement facts panel from the manufacturer, which is like it's like a legal document. So
Yeah.
you have to properly represent that in certain ways on the label. And then getting that printed, and then having the product manufactured, and then, going through the process of, marketing and sort of hyping and delivering the product to the market.
How do you determine what manufacturer to work with and make sure the chemicals are legit, that they're not cutting corners using fucked up shit basically?
Well, like I said, there's sort of manufacturers in the industry of various reputation.
Yeah.
And there is a business model that probably looks a lot like make as much money as you can as quickly as you can, and then hope there's enough left over to pay the lawyers.
Yeah.
Right. And
so they're also
and I mean that for companies and manufacturers. Assuming you're not a villain and an upstanding human
Right.
being in any way, shape, or form, I tip my cap to anybody who has success in our industry, our related industries. I tip my cap to anyone like that. But the big thing is that if that's how you do business and that those are the games that you play, it's going to catch up to you eventually, and you're not going to be in business long. So if you're cutting corners or
that's why honor and integrity are painted on all of our walls and
Right,
every one
sure,
of
of
our
course.
fucking gyms.
Yeah, it's going to be a short-term
It's,
play. You better make a fuck ton of money and never
Right.
need your respect or your name again.
right, so for us, it's we want to make certain kind of products, so that means we can only partner with certain kind of manufacturers.
Is there
and
such
they have,
thing as
and they have
janky caffeine and janky niacin and citrulline? Are there things that?
I mean,
I know
no,
not your shit. But
yeah, of course.
But I'm saying is that even a possible ramification of using somebody who's not more reputable or less reputable?
I mean, I think that you could probably run into a situation where, for example, you are paying for a patented premium ingredient,
right.
and they're using a generic version.
Oh, it's like Marion liquor. You put Grey Goose in Bankers.
Yep,
I got
exactly, right? There could be a lot of that going on, right? Or instances where it's all right, here's an ingredient that's relatively neutral, okay, but this neutral ingredient is expensive, and I think manufacturers maybe cut corners with that, where it's all right, well, let's put a little less of that expensive thing in, and a little bit more of that cheap thing in, and we improve our margins that way, right? But like I said,
do they have to tell you, the person who's in charge of this brand, that they've done that? Or
oh
do they
well,
just-
I mean, we wouldn't do business with
Oh,
someone.
I know,
who's
but
doing that.
let's say that's what they chose to do, though.
Right. I mean, I don't think they would do that.
Okay.
I don't think they would.
Because that's
Of course, and that's and so for example, one of the baseline expectations that you would have going to a manufacturer is that they're certified GMP, which is good manufacturing processes.
Oh, so
right?
there's a governing body. That was my next
There is,
question.
yes. So,
Okay.
so you know, people talk about the supplement industry like the Wild West, but that's only so true, right? Where like the GMPs are an FDA regulated certification.
And that was my next question.
Yes.
Is that on your label?
Yes.
So somebody looking at supplements should look for something that says what
CGMP.
is CGMP. It
Yep.
should say
Certified good manufacturing processes. Yes.
Because what I wanted to say before we get too
Yes.
deep is there's a lot of supplement companies who like every now and then they'll appear on the news like they're putting in a sister drug of fucking like crystal meth or something crazy.
Well, you know, we joke around like some of this stuff. It's not even a joke, but
Yeah.
like a lot of the stuff comes out of my mouth sometimes. Like I've said it so
I know
many
what you mean,
times,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I said like you know people talk about like our products, and I'll be like you know we feel our pre-workouts, the varying degrees of them are very strong and very effective. But I always say we don't use gray market ingredients and we don't
Yeah.
use amphetamine analogs because that's what some of the prominent ingredients in the industry are. Amphetamine analogs. They're essentially you know.
We care about your customers and we don't want to put holes in your heart.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's also not a long-term business play either, right? Like if you're looking at it entirely practically. Let's say you are a villain and you don't care about that stuff. Okay, but you're still only going to get away with that for so long,
Yeah.
right? And there's levels to it too, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to use ingredient X and people are going to have terrible health ramifications from using it. But, right, like it could be that the feds crack down hard on that ingredient and now you can't sell it. And now you're sitting with a warehouse the size of this
Yeah.
room full of one product and
Save
you can't
$10
do anything with it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, so there's instances too where it's like, it's just not, it's not sound business practice, you know? So it's like, I go back and I think about, that company that I worked for that was started in 1977 and I think to myself like, man, like you have to do things the right way to have that sort of longevity. And like, so, going into approaching G Code, starting the brand, looking at the formulations, like that was always one of the goals. Like, and I'll have that conversation to this day with anybody, who has those questions where I'll say like, we want to build a brand that creates these effective products that also keep in mind the long-term health of the people who are using them, and that also sort of sets a standard for our brand enduring and being around a long time.
Well, I think one of the things that speaks true to that is you guys have so much point of contact and reference with the end user in what you guys do. Like
Yeah.
you guys constantly hold, not even just in my gyms,
Yeah,
but like you guys have events where all of your athletes get together.
sure.
I don't think that many people would put that on their shoulders if it wasn't something that they believed in either,
Right.
or if they knew it wasn't quality. Like
Right.
I just don't.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, no, go ahead.
No.
Well, no, I just think, I feel like, that's one of the things that we want to infuse our brand with is like the concepts of value and character. And also too, just the idea that like, we've talked about it, right? Like as the brand grows, like, is it sustainable to have those kind of relationships with the end user and all that? And to me, it's like, it's one of the things that makes us stand apart.
You fight for it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So like, and like one of the things that I come away with, right, and I say this often, but it really, sort of defines what we do, and it always lingers in the back of my mind, right, is that this is a big industry, and there are a lot of companies, and there's a lot of products out there, and there's a lot of good products out there, right? And the thought that a consumer is going to pull their wallet out and pull out their card or their cash that they worked hard for all week, and they're going to decide to use our product as opposed to 200 other products that are in the same category from other companies, some of which are reputable and are good products, and they're deciding to vote with their consumer dollar for ours, like that is a huge deal. That is a huge privilege. Like I have never lost sight of that fact. Like every single time a consumer or a vendor, like, decides that they're going to support our brand and pay their hard-earned money to stand behind our brand, to ingest our products as opposed to all the competitor brands that they could, like that means the world to me. So like when I see these consumers who've been with us for years or who've only been with us for a little while but are super into what we do and very supportive of what we do, like you've bought into the dream, man. Like you bought into the thing from 2017, but you bought into the thing from when I was 15 walking around the fitness
streets.
center. Like you bought into that. Like you are precious to me. Like you mean the world to me. You mean the world to us. You know, like you're the reason we're still here. Like, so I want those people to feel that, you know, and it's like, and I never want to lose that, you know.
That's the other part of it. That's what community is.
Yeah.
That's on
Yeah,
our
social
walls
media
too.
changed the game.
Well, it's also like, and even social media definitely changed the fucking game.
Because for him, you used to have to go to GNC to get a supplement, and you
Of
just
course.
picked whatever the sales rep
Of course.
sold you.
Push
Where
that
now
way.
you're
Yeah.
building a brand, and people are like, "Oh, I'm a G Code guy. I like G Code. I use this." Blah,
I
blah,
mean,
blah, blah, blah.
and that's like, and that's the highest honor, right? Because, you know, the other thing too is like, you know, you think about this, and I know since you started the gyms like that, you probably think even more and more like this, right? But, and since you started Basu, right, you think more and more like this, right? But the way I think of it, right, is that I would only want to wear a shirt of something that I believed in, that I cared about,
I literally stopped wearing other people's clothes.
right?
I
Sure.
got the clothes from my vendors and suppliers
Yep.
because they're part of our community.
Yep.
And so I got your clothes, I got
Yep.
my clothes, I got Basu clothes, and then I've got my brother's brother-in-law's clothes because
Right.
that's his company as well. And but otherwise, I was making clothes in my kitchen last night.
Right, yeah.
Literally, and I'm
Yeah.
making baby onesies
Yeah,
for my
that's
son.
awesome.
And I'm like, I'm selling. I said, look, I put a Basu flag on my kid's onesie. I'm like,
It's amazing.
if wear what you believe in.
That's it, right? And so you imagine the scenario where a consumer who sees things the way we do
Yeah.
feels that same way, and they're deciding, oh, I'm going to put that shirt on and go out in the world today and represent that. Like that's a big deal.
And it's a weight on your shoulders that you have to represent
Of
that
course.
brand every single day. That's part of why I like what we're doing with Basus, because I have to
It
be a
holds you
better
to a
version of
certain
myself.
standard.
I can't,
Of course.
do anything fucked up.
It
or
holds you
gain
to a
100
certain standard,
pounds
right?
and all that
No, of course, it holds you to a certain standard. But what a blessing that is.
I think
What a
that's
blessing
also-
that is to have that standard to live up to, you know?
I think it's a huge pitfall for entrepreneurs too, who they don't know how to zoom out and see that the integrity that they put forward today, and the integrity that they used yesterday greatly impacts tomorrow, right?
Right?
So if you don't act with integrity in all aspects, like you care about your end user, not just because it's a business, you want to make money.
Of
That's
course,
the whole
yes.
fucking point of business
Of
is for
course.
us to make money,
Yes.
pay our bills, and take care of our family.
Yes.
But if you do it, you could easily say, but I could do it for less if I put shittier shit in there
Right, sure.
and make more.
Sure.
But I don't want to do that to the person who has to put it in their body.
Right, of course.
So acting with integrity right there, that's what I think is the most vital part of the community that you guys have built, is because everybody who knows you and they
Right.
get to meet you guys, not blowing smoke up your ass, they know that you guys are genuine, real fucking dudes who give a shit.
Right.
Whether they're handing you money for a supplement or not, you're gonna sit there. I've been at the America with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Went to the second Arnold that you guys were
Yeah,
at.
yeah.
It was literally your athletes and friends had driven overnight
Yes.
just to be there for you guys, helped unpack shit. Everybody's
Man.
in the flannels.
Bro.
And then remember the year you went up there and everybody got turned back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. That was
Fuck.
right when
Right when
COVID
COVID-
started.
it was
Right
like
when
a week-
COVID hit, we were on our way
Yeah.
out there.
You guys were driving already.
Yes, yes. So we went out there, and the Arnold was canceled. We went out there.
Driving to Ohio from Jersey.
We still had our gym event and all that, and then we came back and we did some stuff locally just because we were like, we have to make something of this.
Oh, you had how much money and merchandise did you guys bring to the Arnold?
Oh man, yeah, you know,
I saw the cars.
yeah,
They were
thousands of
packed.
dollars, you know, vans packed of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
and it was-
Yeah, you gotta be prepared.
Yes. And you know, like that's what, you know, one of the things too, right? Like about the community and like these gestures, like what you were just talking about. Like a perfect example is that, you know, we decided sort of last minute to do the Olympia this past year, right? Which it was its first time back in Vegas in a little while. It's not a cheap show to do, but we're like, all right, we're gonna do it last second and kind of like do it for maximum bang for the buck. I'm gonna go out there on my own. I'll make it work. I'm a veteran of this shit. I'll make it work. But I'm on my own, right? Got a booth, you know, the conservative sized booth. Had, you know, Mark kind of put all the pieces in place for me to get everything I needed in terms of having product there and whatnot. And I was, you know, essentially there by myself. I had a couple relationships, a couple friends, one athlete who were in Vegas. So I'm like, okay, maybe they can help me out for a day here and there and get a couple bodies from them, right?
Let me eat a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. And then it turns out, right, that my one buddy who is like working to be an international distributor for us from India was coming out there to compete in the Olympia amateur physique. And he's like, hey man, anytime that you don't have something going on, and his stuff was going on earlier in the week, he's like, I'm just gonna help you out. So here's this guy who's in Vegas, all the way from India,
To compete.
gets done his competition. He's like,
On a
I'm
world
just,
stage.
I'm just gonna hang out and work for you,
Yeah.
work for G Code for free for the weekend and help. I'm like, okay. That's amazing, right? And like, you know, you can't expect too much from somebody in that situation. So I like was like, man, that's amazing. Like just that gesture alone is amazing. So he and I had just kind of set up the booth, and he came and met me, and we're at this food court, and we're eating, and I'm eating, and a dude walks up to the table out of nowhere, and he caught me off guard. I was like, oh wow, buddy of mine, Carlos from Ohio. He's like, hey man, just want you to know I flew out. I'm here for you all weekend. I'm like, excuse me, man?
I'm telling you.
And he's like, no man, I came out. You know, he likes to like play cards or whatever. He's like, no man, I came out to Vegas just to work at the booth for you. I'm like, you're serious?
So somewhere he found out you were going solo on the trip and wanted to be there for you.
Yep. And I was like, holy shit, man, on his own dime.
Fucking gift horse, babe.
Man, on his own dime.
Yeah.
You know, like entirely out of a sense of community, friendship, loyalty, allegiance, kindness, whatever, trust. You know, care, guardianship of the brand. Like, oh, you know, G's gonna be out there on his own and it's gonna get hairy. I'm gonna go out there and help him out. And I'm like, man, like a gesture like that is insane. Like I don't have the words to say like, and it caught me off guard. And he busted his ass for 2 days helping me out. And I'm like that is priceless, you know. And it's just like, I don't take that for granted.
No,
I try to not take any of the little blessings. You know, it's funny because it's like I always say, one of my phrases are, all the things we take for granted are the only things that matter, right? And
I like that. Say it again.
all the things we take for granted are the only things that matter, right? Like, so you think about like, you know, I use this example.
I just say it twice because that's going to be a real decision.
Okay, yeah. No, it's all good. All the things we take for granted are the only things that matter, right? And just the idea that if you really break it down, right, and like the fact that like you have like a roof over your head and you have a warm meal on your plate and like the people you love are okay, like those are when it really comes down to it. Like that's it.
When something happens, you don't realize until something happens sometimes.
All the things you take for granted. Like that's the stuff that you take for granted, right? Like, but really that's the only shit that matters. Like, oh, you're healthy, the people you care about are healthy, you're doing okay, there's a roof over your head tonight, like
you're not hungry.
You got a meal tonight? Like, well, like that puts you in like an elite percentage of the whole planet that you have those things, right?
That's true. I mean, that's like top 10% of the world.
Yep.
A lot of the world can't fucking say that shit.
You got a roof over your head, you have a warm meal on your plate, and your family's okay. You're not in danger at the moment. Like that puts you among the elite on the planet, right? And like if I take that metaphor and I extend it out even further, and I just apply it to like what we do with the brand, like I try not to, like I said, lose sight of the fact that somebody's like a loyal customer and they come back to us month after month when they could buy products from any other brand, or a dude like Carlos flies out to Las Vegas to help me out. Just it doesn't even give me a heads up, just showed up ready to work, and it's like that. Those little blessings.
So to get in there too, right?
Well, once I realized that he was there, I could pull some strings to take care of him and get him in, and like try to mitigate some of the expense and the fact that he was essentially being a free employee for the weekend. But those little gestures, right? Like not taking that stuff for granted. Like I try to always stay in touch with how important all that is.
So I guess, I mean that's everything, man. Your community that you build is that's who supports you, and you support them. Now you're in like these world stage events now.
Yeah.
You've got booths at all of them.
Yeah.
What was the first one, before you get to that a bit, what was the first one like that you went to? Because you just started the company, went to an event, I gotta know.
I wish I had like the guys who were involved here to tell the stories of it, right? But so essentially, right, I quit my job, and 17 days later I showed up at the Arnold Classic with a brand and a booth.
Did you have product ready to go?
So that's a good question. So we had some shirts, and we had some of the G Code books printed, and we had some shaker cups and funnels, and then we had 3 buckets,
like
or maybe there might have been 6 buckets, 2 each, of the 3 different flavors of Prototype Vice.
Okay.
Buckets, right? Buckets with like
paint buckets.
Yes,
handles,
paint buckets with like
buckets.
400 servings in each bucket, right? And we had all these funnels. So what we would do was we would have like we have it on tap, live sampling for people to try, right? And then take shots of it, right? And then we had, if there was 5 of us at the booth, at all times 2 people were in the back. It was a 10 by 10 booth, filling the funnels out of the bucket, and there was a cloud of pre-workout over our booth, right? Yeah, you could taste it, right?
Yeah, it tastes great.
Yep. for 3 straight days at the Arnold, and that was the first experience of it, and it was magical.
Yeah.
I mean, completely
Look
fucking
at you
nuts.
lighting up talking about
Oh my god, it was magical. It was completely nuts.
Did you have that like imposter syndrome? Like, can I be here? Should I be doing this? Like, as
I
you're
mean,
kind of winging it, you're just throwing.
If
it
you're
together.
honest, that never goes away, right?
Yeah.
Like you
That was actually leading my
that
next
never
question.
goes
That's
away.
you're welcome.
You're never goes away.
You're in the world stage with all these other
Yeah.
brands that have had. I mean, you guys are getting to a spot where you're almost tenured, but these other brands have either more or less time.
Sure.
What's the acceptance like? Do you guys do like? Is there like a subtle nod? Do people just not give a shit? Do you guys talk? Is there any cross communication? Because
With other companies?
yeah, because even at the America, you were across from a competitor, and there was cordial conversation.
Sure.
But like, is that a normal? Because I was right next to you.
Yeah, yeah. You know, man, it's almost like anything else, right? Like I'm sure you could interact with guys who own gyms in a relative blast radius of
Yeah.
Wolf and are cool.
Yeah.
And then the
Some that
exact same that aren't, right? So you get both of those things, right? And you get resistance and acceptance.
Yeah, that's
and,
what my thing was.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, are the big boys like
Yeah.
shitting on the new kids and like the new kids on the playground?
I think that there's a little bit of that. I also think that, you know, there are instances where you see that there's bigger brands meaning bigger reach, been around longer, making, you know, huge amounts of money, or international brands or whatever, legacy brands, who are watching you and borrowing ideas.
Seeing what's
stuff.
up.
Yeah, you see that.
Well,
see
because
that.
you can, as a small brand, the
Yeah.
advantage is you can transition, you can try new things. But
Right.
they're so big that it's like a ship. A ship has to move this way; it can barely turn. Where a
Sure,
fucking
sure.
speedboat can kind of
Yeah, I think there's aspects of that for sure. Like, and that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on and try to maintain is that level of being nimble and being able to, you know, be proactive but also reactive if
Yeah.
need be. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's an industry and it's an interesting industry. It's incestuous in some ways. It's sort of cloistered in some ways, right? Like people are kind of like, I don't think it's very much different than show business in certain ways where people are very protective of their spot.
It kind of felt like high school for me. Like
Sure.
it felt like the popular kids were on
Sure.
one half of the
Sure,
dance floor,
Yeah,
and then the rest of us, myself included,
Yeah,
were
yeah.
on the other half.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. No, for sure.
literally
Except you ain't
divide
gonna-
by an aisle.
I think that's true, and I think in those instances, right, you create alliances.
Yeah.
Right, you create
Yeah.
alliances, and you're like, all right, well, you know, if
I meet some of the coolest people at these events when I'm not 10 people deep.
sure,
Like just a random person walking by and say, I'm like, oh, what's going on? You want a t-shirt?
Yeah.
What'd you do? You make them do push-ups last time.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna
You do push-ups, you get a fucking
Yeah,
t-shirt.
yeah,
Then
yeah.
we get a conversation out of it.
Sure.
People are fucking cool.
no, of course,
Yeah.
very much so, very much so, and you encounter, you know, for example, like in like these trade shows, but really just in general, you encounter all types, man.
Yeah.
You encounter all types, like, you know, we talk about like, and I think you got to realize it at this point, right? Like the gym owner and supplement store owner archetype, like they're characters, man. Like you're about as normal, and when I say normal, I mean sort of grounded and reasonable
I try
and
to be
solid
fuck.
as they come.
Yeah, appreciate
Because you and don't get me wrong, there's some colorful personalities, people that are awesome.
that. Yeah, there are.
But it's just a very unique sort of subculture, and the people you encounter are, you know, crazy, and the relationships that you create with these, you know,
Well, you have to be
unique
a little
people.
bit crazy to go out on your own and build your
I
own
think every
business.
entrepreneur's a
Yeah,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
That's
I-
for sure.
But
That's
I
for
wouldn't
sure.
change it for the world.
No, that's it.
Like, fuck.
That's it. There's a level of you know, daring craziness that
Yeah,
is necessary, has to be built into, and then at the same time also, I think just our subculture lends itself to colorful personalities and all that, you know, and it's all a spectrum from cool to not cool, like everything else you do, right?
Yeah.
You meet people from every walk of life who do whatever, and you're like, oh, that guy's awesome. You can relate to that dude. You know, sit down and have a beer with that dude, and then there's on the opposite spectrum where, you know,
I do want to.
I'll
Yeah,
see what's
the
up,
opposite.
but fuck that.
You
exactly.
took the brain of a non-entrepreneur and then took the brain of an entrepreneur and did like somebody who passed away and did like, what's that called when they put them next to each other?
Yeah,
in
sure,
comparison?
yeah.
Do you think, I know we're wired differently, but do you
Right.
think it's visible in the brain? Do you think that it's something that they can acutely see a difference
Maybe
in?
that's portions of the brain are more or less developed and vice
Or
versa.
like,
sure.
is it like, or like the part of the brain that's risk averse, like risk adverse,
Right.
like maybe larger for them,
Sure.
smaller for
Yeah,
us?
but I think it might like light up differently.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Okay,
it would look
so-
any different. I feel
Yeah.
like if there was like a test, it would light up differently
Okay.
because I've seen different things about that.
Because I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs that I know, we're all wired the same way. To like, we eat risk and fear. Like, it's not
Right.
easy to go out and
No.
do your own thing every fucking day.
You
But if you
fear
worry
comfort,
about it, yeah, if you
which isn't normal.
worry about it too much, then nothing happens. If
Right.
I'm worried about what am I going to do if I with just one gym, I'd only ever have one gym. Where
Right,
I
of
just
course.
not have any.
Of course.
You know.
I mean, I can't tell you the instances. I just had conversations, right, where like somebody would tell me, like, say, like, man, I can't imagine you without some sort of resistance to fight against, and would that change you, right?
If
Like,
you weren't meant to go against the grain, there
You know-
wouldn't be a grain. There wouldn't be two ways.
right, and like, would
It
you?
would all just go straight, right?
And
Does
what-
that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, but everything there would be no color. Everything would be
Oh, I
black
know.
and white.
I agree.
Basically.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying if we weren't meant to go against the grain, then everything would just go one way.
If you didn't have the resistance to fight against, would you be the same person? And it's like, no, of course not, And so like I'm aware of that, but it's also like a weird way to be wired, right? Where you don't want to start creating your own resistance to
No,
fight
yeah,
against
you
that
don't
sort of
wanna
stuff. You got to be on guard against that too.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a weird thing because it's something you've all said, and I think Ed Milet has a good way of saying blissful dissatisfaction. So you're grateful and satisfied for everything you had, but you had to go after what you wanted to go after
Right.
in order to feel your own fulfillment. Where other people are looking at you like, what do you mean? You're making good money, you got the family, you got this, and it's like, but I'm not fulfilled.
Right.
And you need that.
Right, because like you have to feel that there is a purpose for you that's greater than
Your own existence.
yes,
It has
yes,
to be something you can leave behind.
yes.
If there's no legacy, there's nothing.
That's
That's the way I think about it. When I think long and hard about why we're doing, all of
Yeah,
us in this room
yeah.
doing what we're doing, is to leave behind something. I get emotional,
Yes,
like
of
tears
course.
up. I'm thinking about what you're saying right now,
yeah.
that you can, like in this podcast, that
Yeah.
Beans can listen to, and your
Right.
other children can listen to
Oh, of course.
years from now.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
the same thing that we're all doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
legacy is more than money. I mean,
No,
obviously,
legacy-
you need money. Money's a great tool.
Money's a great thing to leave behind, but so is who you were.
Right.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, your passions, your loves, talking about them. If they
Right.
don't get the opportunity to share those things with you.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm 6'6".
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
No, man. Listen, man. I shed tears on a regular basis, and that's like something I say too, man. Is that like if you can't, like break into tears, contemplating your mission in life and your purpose in this world and your legacy and stuff, then like, do you really want it that bad?
I mean, passion makes purpose.
I mean,
If it's not passionate, there's no purpose.
I think of that every day. I
Yeah.
think of,
Fuck yeah.
and that's another thing too. I talk about like that kid when I was 15 years old, and I think about my own daughters. And I lost my dad in 2009, and I was 31, and he was like my best friend and a real like
Yeah.
supporter of everything I've done. And so often in this process when things are difficult, I'll stop and I'll think like, if I had taken the easy way, he would have expected so much more of me.
So when you think about him today,
Yeah,
you know that he'd be happy with what you're doing with your life.
I know that he would be happy because he raised. I think my mom probably, God bless her, because she's the most wonderful person. But probably, Tara always says that she, I'm a hip hop guy, but there's a Leonard Skinner song called "Simple Man," and then my mom probably wishes that I was a little bit more of a simple man because it would like my life would be easier, But I don't think my dad raised me to be that.
Would
I
you
think
want a
that-
life of ease?
No. I know that there are people who sleep better than I do at night.
Sure.
But I think that, I often look at it like, there's 8 billion people on this planet, right? And, just how lucky you are to even be alive in the first place, and how brief our lives are in like if you look at the whole of human history, our lives are like the blink of an eye, and it's like, man, like, you might as well air it the fuck out. Like you might as well live to your fullest capacity and leave nothing on the table because, you know, it could all be gone, you know, in
Any fucking moment.
any moment, right? Any moment. Like that's the thing. Like, you know, you hear about. It's sad and tragic when somebody passes away at 90, right?
Yeah.
But you could, you know, there's little kids who are sick in hospital beds right now, and it's like, you know, you realize how blessed you are to have each day, and I think to myself, like, man, life is so brief, and you're so lucky to be here in the first place, like, you know, and it's all so sort of ludicrous in general, just existence and how lucky.
Finite and
Yeah,
minuscule.
finite and fleeting and fragile life is,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, man, you might as well just fucking go for it and air it the fuck out. And maybe you were born to be a king, you know? And what a shame it would be to die and to never know, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, you know, so I carry a lot of that weird existential stuff with me that I don't think a lot of people think about. And God bless them. Like I
Yeah,
said,
no,
they
it's-
sleep better at night, you know?
Yeah.
They sleep better at night.
And that's good for them, but like
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
your feelings.
Yeah.
You strive more in chaos than when you're comfortable and you're just like, this
Right.
can't be it.
Right.
I have to do more. I have to be more.
Right, right.
Well,
you know?
we dictate when we're fulfilled.
Right,
Not how much was in the bank, not what
Right.
we do for a living or the day to day. When we've hit our space, which I hope I never do because that's when I think I stop growing.
right.
But we get to dictate when we're fulfilled in
Yeah.
life. So your genesis story of this 15-year-old boy coming to the gym and coming into himself, actually becoming a young man,
Yeah.
brought you to where you're at now. But what is your current why? Because that was your why to get started. That was your why to pursue what you've done up to today. But what's the why for today? What's the why for tomorrow?
My why is to prove everybody right who's had faith in me over the years. And whether that's Tara, whether that's my girls, whether that's Sco and Dirt,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whether that's the dude Carlos who flew out to Vegas,
Yeah.
whether that's you,
Yeah.
you know, whether anybody who has shown faith in me through this process, because you realize like how fucking valuable that is in the world, right? Like I often stop and I'm like, man, like, you know, because it's easy to become like, you see things, social media, whatever. It's easy to let like cynicism and pessimism sneak in, right? And to have like more of like a jaded view, right? And I often think back of like the instances in my life where I told them something I was working on or some idea I had or some project I had or I was going to start a supplement company or whatever it was, right? And somebody was like, yeah, man, you're going to fucking crush it. And how valuable that was to me, right? And I think about like what a blessing that is, right? To be able to encourage somebody else. To just be in a world of like sort of negative, that can often be negative.
No,
No, I love this,
Yeah.
right?
In a world of negativity, right?
Filled
To
with
be
it, to the
the
brim.
guy who can say, yo man, that's fucking great. I see what you're trying to do. I see the progress you're making. I see how hard you're working. I see that vision that you have and I believe in you that you can do it. And then like how
You know what bothers me about that?
to
though?
this day, man, when somebody says something to that, like I'm like, oh man, like thank you. Like thank you for you know noticing. Thank you for giving a shit. Like what a blessing that is, you know. So not only is it like to try to, I want to prove those people
Right.
You know, I want to prove those people right. You know.
What bothers me about that is with so much negativity constantly spewing around, I fucking firmly believe it is so much easier to be like if you really wish somebody well,
Yeah.
it's fucking easy to wish somebody well
Sure.
and prop them up. But
Of
so
course.
many people go the other way,
Of course.
and it's harder to do that.
Yeah,
it's
for
a
sure.
conscious effort to take that right turn
For
and
sure.
be a jerk and
Right, for
fucking
sure.
shit on someone's day.
For sure.
Just because you stubbed your toe five fucking
Right.
years ago.
Right.
So anybody who can lift anybody up, whether
Yeah.
it's for a supplement company or a podcast and clothing company, or just because, hey, you're doing great in the gym today.
Yeah, man. Whatever it is.
Fucking do
Whatever
it.
People
it is.
remember the little compliments, the little things
Positivity
you
is
do.
contagious.
It goes such a long way, and
It's
and,
contagious.
you know, and I think, you know, I think to this day, like just I can even think back of moments where somebody was just like encouraging. And
We all
you're
have
like,
our
man,
times
like,
when we're negative. It's
Of course.
just human emotion.
Of course, it's human nature.
It's
Of course.
part of our fucking. It's
Of
part
course.
of our gambit of emotions.
Yeah.
But when you focus on it for too long and it becomes your default setting,
Of course.
you're going out of your way to enact a negative imbalance in somebody else's day just because it makes you feel an
Of course.
iota of better for 4
Of
seconds.
course. Of course.
It does nothing to push the ball forward.
And
It's
if it's-
definitely not productive.
Yeah, and if it's somebody that's close to you that does the opposite,
Yeah.
that hates on you or hates
Sure.
on your dream, you're gonna remember that shit
Of
too.
course,
And
yeah,
no,
come
you
on.
can use it as fuel,
Of course.
but you just
But
gotta
it still
remember.
hurts.
Yeah, no,
Still hurts.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you gotta realize what you're saying matters
Of course.
to the people close to you. I mean, obviously, if somebody on Instagram says something stupid to you, you don't really give a fuck.
No, of course.
But those
They're
people
not-
close
they're
to
not
you,
real.
yeah, no,
That's
exactly.
not real life.
It could be a bot.
I don't
for all
live.
know.
I don't fucking live in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Right? I can barely
For
use a
sure.
computer.
For sure.
Like I live in interactions.
Yes.
Exactly.
And if you want to come to my face and interact with me in a negative way,
Right.
all I'm going to do is just write you off.
Right. Of course.
We just won't have a second
That's
interaction. That's easy for me.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
care. I don't. What's your name again?
Right.
Forget the person's name. Be done with it.
Right.
Crazy. So that's your why. I love that actually.
Yeah.
Where do you see G Code going in the next 5 years? What is your plan?
Well, now you're
Yeah.
in kid stuff now too, right?
Yeah, so like that was one of the products that we brought to the market this past year was G Code Kids. You know, like I said, out of necessity, right? Like a lot of the time, necessity
Kids.
drives your motivation to do certain things.
You got young
Yeah.
athletes.
And you realize too, right? Like that, you're a role model for your children. Obviously, the primary role model for your kids, and you know, so often my kids will see me taking my supplements every day, you know, religiously, and they want to model themselves after you, and you think to yourself, wow, you know, why is no one creating anything for them? And then you know, any parent who's honest with themselves, it's such a challenge to like feed your kids and keep them on a healthy diet and all that. There's so much shit out there, and it's like, all right, so how do you counterbalance that, you know, with healthier things,
Just
right?
give them the Flintstones vitamins, right?
Right, exactly, exactly.
Sugar tablets.
Right, exactly. Right, because there's an example of even something that's supposed to be good for you that's probably not great.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You know,
It's
so
really
it's like,
actually
right,
not.
exactly. And there's so many things like that, right? Like,
It's like a Pez.
you go to the store and you look at like what's in V8,
Oh yeah.
and it's shit. And you think to
Everything.
yourself, like, but that's something that like you just,
But
and you
what's
don't
the
blame
brand
them.
tell you? The brand tells you it's healthy.
That's what I'm saying, right? So you imagine the average consumer.
Recognition,
You
yeah.
imagine the average consumer who's not invested in this stuff in any way like we are.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, I'm going to buy something healthy for myself. I'm going to go, I'll get a bottle of V8.
Yeah.
That'll be good for me. And they read what's in it, and they don't even know. But we read it, and it's like, oh man, that thing that's supposed to be healthy is shit.
I look
Right.
at it, I'm like, that's going to give me heartburn.
All right, sure.
Immediately.
Yeah, and you look at so many things like that, right? Especially as they're marketed to our kids, and it's like, all right, well, you know, man, my kids want to have cereal, and my kids want to have all that stuff. Like they're regular, real kids, and chips and all that kind of crap. And it's like, all right, what can I do to counterbalance that? So, like, the idea behind G Code Kids was to create sort of like a product that sort of hits that spot in between like Rise and Life, but it's like completely natural.
And,
And-
just so you guys know, Rise is the amino blend,
Yes.
and Life is the greens.
Yes, Life
not
is
the
our-
pre-workout.
Yes, Life is our
We're
greens
not,
product.
we're not hopping these kids up on
Yes,
caffeine.
no. So right, Rise is our amino recovery elixir, right? Which is we were talking about earlier, but aminos,
Yeah.
hydration ingredients, and immune support vitamins. And then Life is our organic green superfoods, collagen, ancient spice, antioxidant product, right? So it's like, all right, how do you take components from those kind of products, combine them into an all-natural product, and then have it be something that, you know, either parents can use as an alternative to typical soft drinks, or like, you know, something that we do in our house too, like you spike something else with
Right.
it. So, you know, there's a juice that the kids like, all right, we just throw a scoup in there, and it's like, it's
least
a
you know
way
you're
to
getting a positive
you're
benefit
Trojan
of that,
horsing, you're Trojan horsing in that good nutrition, you know, and we think that that product is sort of like an opportunity to, you know, sort of create a positive series of
yeah.
and a positive series of expectations for consumers regarding like what our intentions are as a brand.
That's what I was trying to say.
right?
Brand awareness is
Yeah.
what I was kind of creating, because
Yeah.
it's indicative of why you're doing
Yes.
it on the labeling.
Yes, exactly. You know, and it's like, you know, we made shirts, and on the back they say future role model on them, and that's the idea. Like, you know, we want to, you know, we were talking about legacy, right? Like and what you realize, man, so much, right, is like one of the biggest, most important legacies, right, beyond any of our aspirational entrepreneurial stuff or anything related to anything like that, right? Is like, can you raise good human beings?
Right.
Like that's maybe the greatest accomplishment of all. Can you
And you
raise
What
need
we're-
more
that's
leaders
paramount.
if
You
we're
know?
going to have a future
Right.
as humans.
Can you raise good human beings who are kind and decent and
To everybody.
and
And can lead.
and who are strong-minded and
Yep.
individualistic, who can do the right thing in difficult situations, who can lead by example, lead in you know how they live. Like that's the greatest legacy of all, right? Can you raise good human beings, right? And you know, we feel like creating a product like that is sort of like a small way of underlying how important that is, you know.
Yeah, I think too, what's starting to come out now with science is only 5 to 10% of what happens in your body is genetics. It's
Sure.
that low at this point. Like scientific studies where people are always like, oh, it's my genes. We're like, it's really what you're putting in your body and how you're
Lifestyle.
treating
Sure.
your body.
Yeah.
You need to separate your self and being from the body
Right.
because you just need to treat it right. You got to treat it like a car.
Right. Of course.
If you want it to run long, you better fucking treat it
Of
right
course.
or you're fucked.
Of course, and you know, you realize that too, like, as your priorities shift, right, as you age naturally, right, like there's other things that become more and more paramount, right, like at one point in your life it might have just been about being as jacked as I possibly can, right, being as strong as I possibly can, right, and then over time, and it's not even necessarily about age, right, I always say it's not age, it's mileage, right, like one guy's 35 and another guy's 35 can look very different,
Yeah.
right, like you can.
Dude, I got 37. I'll be 37 in a
Yeah.
week, and I'm looking at these guys in the gym who are, some of them are even older than me.
Right.
I'm like, fuck you, man.
Right.
How do you? I want to be like, what do you want? But I know them well enough to know they're not on anything.
Sure.
There's so much. They're so dedicated
Sure.
to making sure their engine and their machine is
Right.
fucking fully tuned.
Right.
I'm like, dude, I gotta step my game up.
And
I'll be
even-
honest about it.
And even those guys, like, there's a cost to be paid for getting there, right? Because they're not missing workouts, right?
Oh.
So they're you
Or
know,
meals.
right? So their body, their joints, their tendons, their ligaments are under a strain that most Americans, most human beings aren't, right? So it's like there's a cost to be paid also. That mileage that is gonna you're gonna gain.
You worry about that in your 60s. You worry about the
Right.
mileage incurred in the 60s.
Right. But
Little
like that,
changes turn to knee replacements.
right, and the thought that like, okay, if you are going to be the type who's going to strive for physical excellence your entire life, there are other aspects to it other than simply just performance. It's like, how can I improve my immune system? How can I improve my gut health? How can I improve
Longevity,
my
yeah.
right?
It's
How
all
can I
about
improve
figuring
right? How can I thread that needle between like optimum performance and longevity, right? And it's like that becomes more and more important, right? Because
Yeah, man.
because you want to, like every so often you'll see somebody who's like 55 and 65 and they're crushing it. You're like, oh man, like I want that to be me. And then you start, you think, okay, what do I have to do to be that guy?
20 more years of this, right?
Right?
Fuck.
Yeah.
I think the 20-year-old needs to think a little more about that because
Sure.
sometimes they get to, you'll see some kids in the gym who, like, your body is naturally pushing as a guy so much testosterone
Sure.
that you don't need to
Of course.
take a pre-workout, whatever, but like
Sure.
you don't need to be killing it in
No.
supplements and whatever the fuck
No,
other
no.
You
concoctions.
definitely don't need androgynous hormones
No.
coming into play when your
No.
body's still learning how to
I don't
regulate.
I don't
doses
think
of
enough people are saying that at 20 some years old,
Oh yeah.
just work out,
Yeah.
take your nutrition seriously.
Yep.
You don't need all these supplements. You don't have to kill yourself and your body.
No.
Like, do the right thing.
And like all of those things, right? Diet and supplementation and whatnot should become more sophisticated as you become more sophisticated, right? So like the thought that
I also think it should be more educated on. I think
well,
like
of course, but that's the thing, right?
missing completely.
But that's one of those things too, right? Where I think, and I can't blame social media for it necessarily, right? But the thought that the things that you really care about, you will take time to educate yourself about,
Yeah.
right? So like if you really care about training or powerlifting or bodybuilding or nutrition and supplements or that sweet spot where all those things kind of collide and come together, right? Like you will do all you can to educate yourself about them so that you can do them to the best of your ability, right? And then there's other people who don't necessarily have that same commitment, and it applies to anything.
I think it's a maturity level thing too.
Sure.
So I don't think, and myself included, I don't think
Yeah.
I was mature.
Right.
Even with a kid, I had a kid very young. I don't
Yeah.
think I was mature until my mid-20s.
Sure.
And I know biomechanically I wasn't mature.
Right, sure.
It's just that they say
Yeah.
25 is the average maturity level
Yeah.
for males, right? So if I would have known what I know now as far as fucking anything,
Sure.
nutrition,
Yeah.
working out, whatever, then I probably would have cared a lot more.
Sure.
But I feel like just even on the educational level, we're missing. I would love for us to get rid of some of the stupid shit that we don't need in school,
Right.
and add in, hey, let's learn a little bit of financial maturity
Sure.
levels. Let's learn how to balance a checkbook.
Sure.
Let's learn how money works. Let's learn
Sure.
how to make
Of
investments.
course.
So that when you get out of here, you can
Yeah.
put those tools to work for you.
Of
Let's
course.
learn about nutrition. Let's learn about things that are going to make you live longer and healthier.
Absolutely. No, you see that, and you see how
It's
there's
missing.
those things are missing, and I mean, it's obvious. They're glaringly missing.
And when you and I were kids,
Sure.
we're not that far in age.
No.
When you and I are kids, there wasn't an obesity,
Right. Right.
call it epidemic. It just
Right.
wasn't a thing. 'Cause
No.
they were running. I had recess for fucking 2 hours a
Of course.
day.
Sure.
And gym class was you're either climbing the rope
Yep.
or you're playing basketball.
Right. Of
And I
course.
could not climb that fucking rope
Right,
more than
right.
once.
Right.
So I'm playing basketball.
Of
So
course.
we were running back and forth.
Of course. And after school was,
I
you
played
know,
sports.
amen. And right. And video games were like cool and all, but video games happened like.
I think GoldenEye was like the hottest game of my childhood.
Well, right, and I laugh about video games, and it was like, man, like video games were like a thing at 11 o'clock at night, or when it was, you know, pouring rain
Yeah.
or something. Like it
Well,
was
only
not
when I had
a,
friends over. I didn't
right.
want to play
It was not
GoldenEye by myself.
like it was like, oh, you get home from school, you go play ball.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was, and then like you see the difference in a society
We were
that
circling
doesn't
up
value
cars
it
and
anymore.
boxing in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Like with
Sure.
friends, not
Yeah.
like hurting each other.
Of course. Year round, there was you know, it was basically basketball year round, but then there was football and baseball, and you were doing all of those things, and then it was also a transition, those things plus the gym as you got older, and it was like there was always like a very prominent physical component, vigorous
You were
physical component to my
moving.
daily life.
Fucking moving
You know?
all day long.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, oh well, huh?
Here's all the processed foods you can possibly eat, and then go play video games, and then wonder how and why
Right,
you're
well,
gaining weight.
That's a
It's
whole
the
other
te-
topic.
it's the
Processed foods and
technology,
stuff,
right?
It's
It's the-
affordability. I
It's
mean,
the technology, right? Like, right, not talking about the foods, but like, you know, the kids and their access to technology and all the many benefits of them, there's also so many drawbacks, you know,
Yeah,
and one of them
without
is, you know, it's like, I joke around and I say like the phone is like become like my robot appendage,
Yeah.
right? It's just a robot extension of me, the human being, the human entity. This is the robotic extension of it. And I utilize this to communicate. I utilize this to do business. I utilize this to, you know, for commerce. Utilize this for multiple purposes. Well, so do our kids. You know, so do our kids. And then our kids, you know, and sure, you know, on my list, the entertainment portion of why I use it is lower. But for a lot of people, the reason they use the phone is the education. I mean, the entertainment portion is much higher. And then for our kids, it's even higher than that. You know, and it's like, you know, a lot of the access to information and access to content and all the freedoms that are brought by this technology are also the things that are limiting physical activity.
it also breeds anxiety when you fucking forget it or you don't touch it
God.
for 5
Of
minutes.
course.
Or like every
course.
week when it politely tells you your screen time and you just dismiss it.
Yeah.
Like-
And you realize how serious the addiction is, and you think to yourself, how do I better manage this addiction? You know.
I mean, to be honest, my wife's like, you were in the bathroom for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And you weren't moving that whole time.
I was
Yeah.
like,
I'll be right back.
see you later. I was like,
I was just on my
I was
phone.
fucking scrolling.
Yeah.
That's a
Of
problem.
course.
So
Of
now
course.
I have to cognitively check myself and
Yeah.
leave that shit out of the bathroom
Yes.
for me. I'm in there to do something. Go do it.
Right, of
get,
course.
get the fuck
Of
back
course,
out. You got a
of course.
6-month-old kid waiting for
Yeah.
you.
No. Of
Wake
course.
up, big boy.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, dude.
No, and I mean, and you realize like that it's this incredibly powerful tool,
Oh, it's so
But
positive, but it's also so
That's
negative.
it.
It's so many
That's
different
it.
levels of negativity.
and how
too.
do you balance that? You know, how do you strike that balance where you're reaping the most benefit from it without it being negative? You know,
I have a
having
wife.
negative
That's
impact.
how I manage it.
Sure.
She's helpful in that respect.
Sure.
But like at the same time, at night when you put the baby down and you
Right.
want to be quiet, so
Yep.
the TV stays off, and
Right.
you're still wide the fuck awake.
Of course.
What do you find yourselves doing?
Right.
You're sitting on the couch next to each other,
Yep.
which is still great.
Yep.
But you're just
Yeah. Of course.
looking at stupid shit or
We all
reading fucking emails that
Right.
can wait till tomorrow.
Of course.
Um,
And what a slave I am to text and email. You know, and because I have to be. But to what degree do I have to be, and how can I manage it? How can I become more efficient with it?
Yeah.
Right, all of those things. You know, how can I be? I can't tell you how many times like, you know, I'll use my notes on my phone to write something.
it's all I use my notes for.
In the process of writing those things, checking emails or texts, there's also things popping up on social media,
Right. And little
And-
banners that popped. Oh, you just
Right.
got a message.
notifications, right, and all these things are kind of flooding your mental timeline.
Yeah.
Right, while you're trying, and so you're trying to focus on this one thing, but you're distracted and pulled off track. So this one task that might have taken you 90 seconds otherwise now took 15 minutes. And it's like if you apply that to everything,
Yeah,
you
your
know,
5-minute bowel movement just
Yeah.
took 45.
that's it.
You only awake for how many hours in the
That's
fucking
it.
day?
That's it.
Like I know, like I have an early bedtime because I wake up really early
Yes,
for the gym.
sure.
And so I know that like when I go into the bedroom, I hit the DND button
Yeah.
because I know it's not gonna show any notifications.
Right, yeah.
I can read my book for 30 minutes. I
Yeah.
can turn that shit off, and I don't. If you're part of like if you work for me,
Yeah.
you can call through. You can
Right.
break through DND.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're family, you can break through DND.
Sure.
If you're not,
Right.
I will get to you
Yeah,
tomorrow.
of course.
But
course.
for fuck, I just started doing that. I'm
Yeah,
like
yeah.
saying it like I've been doing it for my whole entire life. No, it's just something I just, you know what, I'm gonna hit this fucking button tonight.
No, I've gotten into a better groove of. I feel like I'm much better if I read before bed. Read an actual book, a physical book before bed,
Yeah.
right? And have that quiet time. And I try to only check emails and texts up to a certain time at night, and then say to myself, okay, like. Hey,
Business
whatever.
doesn't stop. There. That's the
Everything's
hard
gonna,
part.
that's the thing. It's 20.
Like,
I said
when my
it's 25,
business-
8, 366, and it's like, you know, I think to myself, okay, what's going to be the, you know, what is it that could happen between now and when I wake up that can't wait, you know? And you have to answer those questions honestly, you know. And it's a difficult thing, and there are things that, you know, I don't, in terms of like, for example, like the sales portion of what we do, what I do personally, what I'm responsible for personally, like, you know, I want to always be as responsive as I can be. You know, I don't want to leave anybody hanging. You know what I mean? So like, I go out of my way to try to make sure that, you know, if it's a customer, a vendor who needs something from me, I'm available to them at all times. You know, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and you do all these things to various degrees of detriment to your
Mm-hmm.
mental health, sanity. You know, and it's like you try to strike that balance.
I mean, for you, it's different because people can email you. I mean, people email us at all hours of
Sure.
the night, but we're closed from 11 to 5.
Sure.
So nothing's gonna fucking happen
Right,
from
of
11 to
course.
5. I know that enough that
Yes.
it'll be there for me in
That's
the
a
morning.
wonderful thing. Yeah.
But for you guys, if you're in New Jersey
Yeah.
at midnight,
Right.
they're still fucking wide awake at 9
At night,
p.m.
right? In
in
California.
California,
for example,
and
yeah.
they're gonna fucking hit you up because they're not cognizant. Actually, for customers, it doesn't matter what time it is because
Right.
they're a customer. They're giving you money.
That's it.
That's just that's the subtle expectation that we all have
That's
to
it.
kind of
Of course.
go
Of course.
by.
Of course.
But
And I try to hold myself to
Yeah.
that standard. You know.
That's a lot of pressure.
So you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
that's, you know, that's part of the deal, right? It's like part of what you signed up for, and I remind myself of that, you know. And it's like, you know, like I said, I'm thankful and blessed in so many ways that I try to just roll with the punches.
Mhm.
The other stuff, the stuff that seems crazy, the stuff that seems obsessive, you try to just accept it. You know what I mean? You accept it and you try to
Yeah, I
mitigate the
yeah,
damage it
we
does.
can't really change it. It is what it
That's
is.
it.
It's who we are.
That's
Do
it.
that or go back to the 9 to 5.
Yeah, it's
Right.
wired into us. That's
Of
why
course.
we're at the table we're at right now
Of
having
course.
this conversation.
Of course.
So you said 10 years from now you want to be on the top of the mountain looking back down and kind of just being like,
Right, and that's relatively
I know,
speaking,
but
right?
just to be able to look back and
Yes.
be like, this is, look, we've made our
Yes,
first peak.
Yes, yes.
Or we've gotten to
Yes.
this peak. Not
Yes.
not at the top.
No,
but
no,
like
there's
we
always
peaked.
another apex.
We're
Yeah.
at like we're at the one, yeah,
Yes.
exactly, one
Yes.
apex, and there's always more.
Yes.
So then, what's the 5-year plan? Because you guys innovate, you have new products. all
Yeah,
the
I mean,
time.
the 5-year plan is to, you know, level up as quickly as we can, to
Mhm.
double down on everything that we've done so far, to expand, you know, to simultaneously strike that balance, right, between being more and more authentic and true to the end consumers' expectations, and also make a push for a more broad and mainstream audience too, right? How do you do both at the same time, right?
Okay, how do you hit mainstream while staying grassroots?
I think part of it is just strategic and just the channels that you use and how you place yourself.
Mhm.
And then, you know, some of it is just window dressing also, like, and you create these products, like, you know, some of the products in the G Code line, right? Like, I probably said this to you before, right? But like Life, for example, like the most hardcore dude who's ever walked through the Wolf doors, right? The hardest training dude could benefit from using Life.
Mm-hmm.
And then our grandmothers could benefit from using
I
Life.
sell Life to a lot of the grandmothers in the gym. And
Right.
I sell Life. Lance London, one of the strongest
Yes.
people in the nation for
Yes,
his age,
yes.
drinks Life
Yes.
religiously.
So there, like that's a
Competes
perfect
on a
example.
world stage.
That's a perfect example, right? So how do you keep it in Lance London's hand and in Lance London's imagination
Yeah.
and his peers' orbit and remain relevant and, you know, sort of keep it in their frame of reference, right? How do you keep that product there and prominent for them, or make it more prominent for them, right? And then at the same time, not scare away the yoga moms and the grandmothers and all that, right? So it's like striking that balance. And I feel like we have the people and the skill set to be able to do both of those things and to do it tactfully. So it's like stay true to who you are, and then at the same time make the rest of the world also aware of what you can
Yeah,
do.
we want you to. We can help
Yes, yes, you know, and it's like, you know, when I went back to the GCO book, right, lessons for living an extraordinary life in the real world, right? Like I've always said for GCO, like it's real people in the real world doing extraordinary things, right? So it's like, how do you make products for real people? And real people like are a broad spectrum of people, you know. It could be the aspiring athlete, it could be the IFBB pro bodybuilder, it could be
A nurse.
it could be a nurse, it could be a
Stay-at-home mom,
a nurse,
anybody.
a stay-at-home mom, a doctor, you know, a lawyer,
NFL player.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I mean, anybody in the world
You know?
can fit into that category.
You know, a firefighter, like it's the broadest spectrum of people, and it's like, and everybody. And the idea is that everyone has their own goals, everyone has their own standards for excellence and how they want to live their life, and it's like, okay, what can we create to help them be the best version of themselves, you know, and
Yeah, we all
make
have
them feel
levels.
like
We're
they're
trying
part
to
of
help them
something.
level up.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And everybody's definition of leveling up is different. You know.
What's your take on dry scooping?
That's a good question. No. All right. So, you know, I think that it's more like a gesture done to be hardcore than it is anything that's effective in terms of like biochemistry, right? I feel like
I mean, it's been proven, right? The efficacy is just not there.
right, all of these products are designed to be consumed in solution in water, and it makes perfect sense if you think about it, right? Like if you dilute these things and you drink it, and then it will be assimilated into your bloodstream and into your tissues more quickly than if you put it in your mouth dry and then have to rely on your own saliva and, you know.
Reconstitute
Yes.
from with powder to
So,
liquid.
so what's the least amount of water I guess you could do to hit the right amount instead of doing a dry scoop, which
Yeah.
obviously isn't beneficial?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do it shot style. Like I think you could do 4 ounces
I
of
was
water.
gonna say 2 to 4
Yeah.
ounces.
I think it
was
says
minimum.
4 to 6, right,
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
package.
you could do that.
I
You
mean-
could do that for sure. And I think like that's another thing. That's just a matter of
You
personal
get the full
preference.
flavor profile in
Yes,
2 ounces.
yes, of course.
I mean-
Well, that's the thing too. Like we joke and we have like people in our circle who like to dilute stuff, and like no matter what they make, it's in a full shaker cup, right? And then other people who like will water something down and drink it. And then like there's other people too. Like a lot of the time, I find myself not taking pre-workout in that style. A lot of the time, I will warm up doing cardio and I'm sipping on my pre-workout while I'm doing cardio, and then I'm halfway through it, and then I've started my first couple sets and I'm still sipping on it, and then it kind of in my mind it kind of powers me through that workout. I go back to those Brigantine Fitness Center days where you buy like a Ripped Force or a Speed Stack or
Speed
those,
Stack.
right? Yeah,
Like a
and I would
Turbo
buy,
T.
but you buy one when you walk into the gym, and you don't stand there and just guzzle it, right?
Yeah, you walk
you're
around with it.
drinking. Yeah, you walk around drinking it. So like
It's your fucking drink.
sometimes that's how I approach a pre-workout too, and I don't think that's negative, like necessarily negative either. Like
Well, it's user preference, right?
that's it. That's it. And I've felt the benefits of just banging one back and going and doing my thing, but then I also kind of find myself my process is often that I just sip on.
I'm finding in older age,
Yeah,
I'm getting more caffeine sensitive,
sure.
and I think spending like the past 20 years working in gyms and law enforcement,
Sure.
I was hyper caffeinated
Sure.
to like the point where if I had less than 1,000 milligrams a
Yeah.
day, it was like
Yeah.
weird,
Yes.
and you felt weird
Yes.
because you're like you're cognizantly
Yeah.
aware
Yeah. Yeah.
that you are not on that
Right.
life planet from the fucking
Yeah.
sun.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
And so like I find myself mixing a thing of pre-workout,
Yeah.
and then I'll take a couple of sips and I'll keep adding more water to it.
Right. Yeah.
And
I
it just turns
hear
into
that.
just a regular beverage, and
Yep.
then that for me, I'm still getting the same amount of caffeine,
Yep.
but it's diluted over the entire day
Yep.
because come 4 a.m. is when I mix it in the morning,
Right. Sure.
and then when I get to work, and then
Yeah.
by 4 p.m. I'm getting home, and there's
Sure.
probably still this much
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a gallon of water's fucking been through the
Right.
jug.
Sure. For sure.
So
for
I'm
sure.
getting what, 2 milligrams of caffeine at this point. I'm doing it
Yeah.
for the flavor, but I'm also doing it because I have to get my water.
Right. It's funny, like, you know, we made Vice Triple X this past. We
I'm
launched
well
it
aware.
on Friday, right? Yeah. Yes.
Tried it once.
Yes. They
It
were
works.
They were. You guys, I brought one to you the first day we had it.
You
so
brought
that
one to all
it's
3
to all
locations.
3 gyms. I brought one in person to all 3 gyms.
I had to tell my staff, can you stop fucking opening everything before I get there? Like, okay, I get it. Everybody wants to try it, but like, wait, I'll be there tomorrow.
I was so excited to bring it to you guys. And it's one of those things where, like, you know, it's a lot of caffeine, and I don't maybe need that every day, right? And you also think too, like, about your own biochemistry and just like almost you know, you're a biological entity, right? So like you're not necessarily the same dude on
Right,
Wednesday that
yeah.
you were on Monday, right?
Yeah.
Like your sleep might have been different, your calories might have been different, your stress that you're dealing with might be different, right? So like in some instances you want and need more, and in some instances you don't.
Yeah,
and
your cortisol
things will
levels-
affect you, right? Exactly. Managing cortisol levels,
Yeah.
managing all those things, right? And the thought of like, you know, how this specific performance product is going to impact you based on how you're feeling personally, your state of mind, your sleep, your calories, all those things. Like it'll impact you differently depending on what your status is on that specific day. So I think part of that's kind of being in tune with you know who you are and where you are at this moment, sort of conscious of yourself, you know.
I mean, I do have to say, like, I prefer just the old school grape G Code Vice.
I mean,
only
it sounds
because
big,
what's that? It's what 200,
200
250?
milligrams.
Yeah,
200.
that's plenty for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the
But, like,
original.
I
The
did-
grape Vice is the,
The
very
grape
first
is my favorite
product.
flavor, actually.
Yeah,
I used
yeah.
to think it was fruit punch, and then I
Yeah.
had grape again, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
I know the grape is
Grape's
it's a
good.
nostalgic flavor for me.
Um,
It always will be.
But then I tried the Triple X, and I'm like, I put like 2/3 of a scoop in
Yeah.
my water, and it was. I mean, it worked. I was wired, but it felt like my workout, an hour and a half workout,
Yeah.
happened in like 17
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah,
I felt
yeah,
like
yeah.
I just went like, near,
Yep.
and then I was done, and I'm like, hey, well, who wants to go to jump
Yeah.
in tomorrow?
What do you mean I'm talking fast? Right, and it's one of the like so you know Vice Triple X is our attempt to you know because here's one of the things that you learn right in the process of this stuff is you're gonna create products for yourself that make sense to you, motivated out of necessity, motivated out of your ideals, right? And then to a certain extent, you're gonna expend time and energy and resources trying to convince people why this is what they should want.
Right.
Right? And then in other instances, and I think you learn this with maturity, right? And experience, you realize that you kind of have to let the market
Tell you
determine what they want. And instead stop trying to convince people so much what they should be doing and try to give them your best version of the thing that they want.
Which is
right?
fine though, because you're still offering what they want,
Yeah.
but on your
Yes.
in your
That's it.
style.
That's it.
Because you're talking about all the other brands that are coming out with hypercaffeinated
Right, sure,
substances,
sure.
a bunch of niacin,
Yeah,
a bunch of
yeah.
other shit in there. And while you don't need to flood your system with it,
Right.
if that's what you want,
Right.
if that's what's on trend
Sure.
for you right now, I have a product that will work
Right.
for you.
Right, exactly.
And when you wake up and you're like, shit, I haven't slept in 2 days.
Yes.
Here's the normal product that we've been
Yes.
selling for almost 6 years now.
Yep.
And people know that this is a normal product
Right,
that
right.
continues to work.
Right.
Because not only is it just caffeine,
Yeah.
but you've got some Himalayan sea salt, you've got some beets
Yep.
for vacillation and oscillation.
Yep.
You've got everything that you need in here.
Yep.
I'm not trying to pump your product.
No, no,
I'm
no.
just saying, like,
Of course.
because it makes fucking sense. But
Yeah.
it also makes sense to why you guys came out with it. Because
Right.
I'm not going to name any of their brands, but
Yeah.
as a gym owner, like,
Yeah.
we sell a lot of the other
Of course.
stuff.
Of course.
And I just get blown away by some. Like, I read the labels.
Yeah.
And we sell single scoops left and right.
Right, sure.
And I'll put 5 different things,
Yeah.
including yours, on the table.
Yeah.
And I'll say, my question is now,
Yeah.
how much caffeine do you want?
Right, of course.
Like, the one guy today came up, he's like a 67-year-old guy. He
Okay.
always wants this one brand that has like 450 milligrams.
Right.
And I'm like, thankfully today I'm out. Because I give it
Yeah.
to him and his eyes just go fucking red.
Right, sure.
So I'm like, well, I have this one that's got 200.
Right.
I've got this one that's got 400.
Right.
He's like, I'll take the 400.
Yeah.
I kind of fucking figured.
Right, sure.
But if it was triple X, and,
Right.
and he's like, why is it red?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, read the label.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
okay. We're
Yeah.
gonna get through this,
Yeah,
buddy.
yeah, yeah.
And he loved it.
Yeah,
It's
well,
just-
that's it. And it's like, you know, it's one of those things too where it's like we're creating a high stim pre-workout because the market demands it, but it's going to be done on our terms. So once again, there's no amphetamine analogs,
Right.
there's no gray market ingredients in it. It's only going to have things that it still has beetroot, it still has sea salt, right? It has these important components that we feel are not only important for performance, but are also important for general health. And we're going to make that product that has a lot of caffeine in it because that's what the market demands and that's what this end consumer wants. It's going to have an awesome flavor and all those things. But we're not going to do it by putting people at risk or by turning our back on our values. And it's like, okay, so here's our response
Yeah.
to what the market needs and wants, but it's going to be done on our terms, you know?
Yeah, with
and in a way that
integrity.
we're comfortable with integrity and with our values in mind and with the end consumer's health in mind. You know?
And you take all your own supplements, right?
Every day. I mean, every day, like I get up in the morning and I do my cardio in the morning.
Remember the videos you used to make with like the Fairlife,
Yeah.
like bananas and like
I need to do
protein?
more of that
Gotta get
shit.
back to doing
I
that
know,
shit.
you're right. I do.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that, man.
And you know what would be hilarious? I
Yeah.
was thinking about this coming over. I'm
Yeah.
like, what if you and the girls, like,
Yeah.
you dressed them up
Yeah.
and they had their arms behind their back,
Yeah.
but it was your arms mixing
Yes,
everything?
that's a good idea.
Like, that'd be a
See
fun
that?
video to watch.
See that?
You just
That's
made
what
your
I
first
need.
reel.
That's what I need. No, it's brilliant.
But like, because you used to do that as like as a weekly staple.
Yes.
It's like, what am I doing today?
Yes.
And then you would slam it
Yep.
down and be like, this is what I made today,
Yep.
and let me show you what it was.
You're inspiring me to get back to that. Well, it's funny, right? Like that's a perfect example. Like it's stuff when you're building brand, right? It's like we were talking about earlier about the Squadcast and how like
Oh yeah.
we have our own podcast, done like 50 some episodes, right? And like, but last year we only did a couple, right? And we've done a couple so far this year, and you realize like those are important.
Yeah.
But when your focus is spread thin,
Mhm.
there's things that you do more of and things you do less of in those instances, right? And you make these amputations not because you want to, right? And then that happens, right? And there's things that you're not getting done because you're more focused on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I mean, how do you service the entire country and still also create 10 episodes a month of a podcast?
Right. Well, and it's like, all right, so you're trying to figure out how to do it. Okay, so maybe it's not 10, maybe it's 3.
Yeah.
And right, and maybe it's like, all the, you like the just for example, like a shake video. Well, all right, well, if I haven't done one of those in a long time, maybe I get back to doing that. Maybe I make one.
And that's nice because you guys come from a film background, so you
Right.
can actually tell
course.
like more thought than
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, and it's like, all right, so it's like, how can we create more of that content in a way that's effective, that is valuable, that people, take note of and consider worthwhile? And it's funny, right? Because like Tony mentioning that to me now, just completely off the cuff, right? Now that's planting the seed in my head, like,
Those were the things I was watching before when I
See?
first met you.
yeah,
We never met.
Of course.
So like I had to like
Get to
my
know
due
him.
diligence
Yeah.
was stalking through
A little bit.
Instagram. And I'm like, and so I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh, this shit's fucking good. The video's
Yeah.
good. And that was
Yeah.
before you guys even launched your protein
Yeah,
line.
yeah.
It was just stuff that you liked.
yeah,
It had all of your other stuff,
yeah,
but like
yeah.
it worked because I remembered it. Like just sitting here now.
Yeah, and it's like, and you understand like how you're running the brand day to day, and you're responsible for all this stuff, right? And you're sweating all these specific things, not realizing, and you're thinking, oh, that's not important. Who gives a shit? And not realizing that Tony, just for example, was invested in that and
Oh,
really
yeah.
liked it.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, damn, man. Like I'm sitting here thinking that these things are the most important, but then that thing that this one consumer or this vendor or this one individual out there really loves and believes in, I didn't do that.
Yeah. They
Right.
fell for you because of that thing.
You
That's
know?
the pitfall of that fucking like button, man.
And it's funny, right? Like it's like you're always trying to figure out
Yeah.
like, what that sweet spot is and how to execute these things and how to be all the things that you want to be to the end consumer, And it's funny how there'll be random things like that
Yeah,
that somebody
it
will
just sticks
mention.
with you.
Yeah, that somebody will mention and I'll be like, wow, man, it didn't even occur to me that the absence of that is missed.
Right.
And it's like maybe that's where the magic was. You know what I mean? And now why didn't you create magic?
I understand.
It's
There's so many ways you can have fun with
Of
that.
course.
And it becomes something that like people. I don't know the algorithm for reels.
No, of course. No,
That's
yeah.
what Steve does.
Yes, and algorithms in general, it's like it's
Yeah, I just don't understand the way that shit
Yeah,
works. But I
of
do
course.
understand. Like I liked seeing that.
yeah,
And like,
That's it.
maybe somebody else did too.
Of course.
Yeah, and then I think of you too, and on
Right,
top of
right,
it,
of
you know
course.
what I mean? Now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh shit, you know what? I just ran out of that supplement. I need to order more.
yeah, of course, and you find yourself, it's you're always trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Every day you're trying to figure out, what it is that I can do today. Like our motto as a brand is better every day, right? Like what is it that I can do to be better tomorrow, to be better today than I was yesterday, to be better tomorrow than I am today. What are the things that I can do tomorrow that I didn't do today
Mhm.
that can build on past gains? What are the things errors that I've made that I can improve upon? Like, what are these things? What are the little metrics that I can do to be a better person, to build a better brand? I know that's very much in line with you guys.
I was gonna say that's normally the last question he asks you.
Yeah.
You ruined it.
No.
I mean, you're living it. It's
Right. Yeah, you're
it's
doing
even better than asking you a question.
Right.
You're living, becoming a better version of yourself. You're selling supplements. You're doing all of those things. You're chasing your dreams. The
And-
essence of it.
As a work in progress, right? Like I am not a perfect man.
No.
I got so many aspects of everything in my life that I can do to be a better father, a better businessman, to build a better, stronger brand, to be a better a husband, a better friend, right? To be a better athlete, right? Like all the things that you want to do, right? Like
Just a better version of it. Just the best
yourself,
version of
right?
yourself.
Right,
That's
and
the
it's
whole point.
and it's what can I do? How can I be kind to myself, right? Which is important, right? You gotta have
Self-care,
you have to have
man.
your own back, right? Like you have to believe in yourself and have your own back, and how critical that is in trying to do anything ambitious in this world, right? How can I have my own back, be kind to myself, and at the same time push myself to be better every day, right? Like how do I strike that balance, you know? And that's we're works in progress, you know. So it's like I sit here and think of everything that I could do to build G Code to be bigger and stronger, and everything I can do to be a better man, to leave a greater legacy, you know, and to lift up and build up the people in my life that I care about, whether that be a consumer who believes in our products, or a consumer who hasn't discovered us yet, or my daughters, and I'm trying to figure that out every day, you know.
Yeah, building superior is a lifelong journey.
Yes,
My
it's true.
my last question for you
Yes.
was you currently live it, and you've lived it for a while now.
Yeah.
How do you talk to people who don't have the tenacity yet to ditch their full-time job,
Right.
and if they have an idea that has substance,
Yeah.
how do you encourage them to follow or bet on themselves, or like kind of get themselves from
Yeah.
there's probably a ton of people against that glass ceiling
Of course.
that you're feeling, but don't know what the next step should be.
Right.
It's a scary fucking
Well,
existence.
of course. I think the one thing that I would impart upon people is to let your passions lead you.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest thing, right? Because like, if it's something that you love, if
Okay.
it's something that you care about, right? If it's something that is an extension of who you are and what you believe in, there's almost nothing you won't do for it, right? It's an entity almost like
like a child.
a child, very much so, right? And it's like, if you believe in this thing and you love this thing with all that you are, right? Then you'll figure out a way to make it work. You'll find a way, right? And if you let your passions lead you, you're going to, one, probably excel in creating something of substance that's in this realm that you care about so deeply, right? And then two, you will buy into it in a way that demands your love and care and guardianship, If it's just about maybe a financial opportunity or maybe an idea, but it's not something that you deeply care about, then it's going to be more difficult for you to endure all of the challenges that you're going to have to face to get to the place you want to get to. Mm-hmm. That's the key. I think if you really truly love and believe in and are committed to something with all of your being, then it's easier to dedicate all of yourself to making it a reality and to making sure it succeeds and
manifests itself into
yes.
what you dream it to be.
Yes. And I think that only if you truly love and care about something will you be willing to endure whatever it takes to make it real and to make it
survive all
Yes.
of the ups and downs
Yes.
of the whole
Yes.
thing, because there's going to be a shit ton of them.
they're unavoidable.
People sensationalize being an entrepreneur, but you eat a lot of shit sandwiches, and they never taste good.
I mean, everybody sees, the reels with the private jets and helicopters and Lamborghinis and stuff, and I'm
I
like,
hate that it's called reels, because it makes you think it's fucking real.
yeah.
It was a
And
good
I mean,
term.
I know.
It-
I mean, when he landed
it's-
here in his fucking plane out back, his
Yeah.
helicopter, it was ridiculous.
You didn't see that coming.
I wasn't ready.
That's why I had no signal. Cause
He had
I
the
was
chopper in the air.
when it landed in the backyard, I was like, oh, I finally got my text. But no, that's the thing, man. It's like, what are you willing to endure to make your dream real? And it's like, you have to have that sort of candid conversation with yourself. But if it's somebody who's wedged up against that glass ceiling and they know that there's more for them out there, odds are it's not only going to be like in the field that they're in, but it's maybe in the field that they care the most about. And I think that's one of the most important guiding principles,
I agree.
No, I agree.
What would be the best way they follow you, contact you?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm available 258366
I was
to
trying to
anybody who
fucking
loves
repeat
this
it
brand. To anybody who loves and believes in this brand or is interested in this brand, we're at G Code Nutrition on Instagram. We're G Code Nutrition on Facebook. My name's Greg Sanaciro. I'm at the Real G Diesel on Instagram. Greg Sanaciro on Facebook. If you want to reach
Website?
out, website is gcodenutrition.com.
And
Where all of our products are available, all of our apparel is available. We have the Arnold Classic coming up, so we're going to be doing some cool stuff related to the Arnold. So you guys will be able to sort of follow along in our journey in real time. We say we kind of do a thing every year for the Arnold, which we call Arnold Everywhere, which means like, okay, so you couldn't be at the Arnold, but we have a shirt that's going to be available at the Arnold. You can go to the website and you can get it. Like the products are priced a little better for the trade show. You can go to the website and they're at a better price on the website. We're going to be on Instagram. We're going to be on Facebook as much as we can, trying to share the moments with you and kind of create that Arnold experience. So if you're in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, or
somewhere not there.
yes, somewhere not there, right? You're in France. You can still be at the Arnold with us. So like we try to share as much of this process as we can with everybody else, and moments that are significant to us, like the Arnold, we're going to try to bring to them. So
You guys are really good with the mystery drops that you guys do. And,
we haven't done one in a minute.
That's my
Yes.
that's my final question.
Yes,
I promise.
yes.
So, is there a mystery drop coming up in the next month or two or three or four, just so people can kind of have it on the radar? Because it's always a limited but small batch, and
Yes.
it always sells the fuck out.
Right, so the concept of the mystery drop, just to give a little insight. So what thing we started to do when our brand started to gain traction, and at the very least had like a solid little core group of people who really believe, brand missionaries who believe in what we do. We would sort of rush a segment of a production run, and then it would be limited to X amount of cases, right? And we would make them available on our website for a limited period of time. And once they go, they go.
But you don't know what it is.
But you don't know what it is, right? So the idea is
Which is like
right. So the idea is like the concept, the
mystery
unifying principle, organizing principle behind it is: do you trust us?
Yeah.
At this point, do you trust us? If you do, here's a product. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, it's available. And if you want it, you can be the first in the world to have it. And come to gcodenutrition.com. And
I love
Yeah.
we
For
drop
me,
it.
it always
So-
reminded me of like when you get the Airhead packs and there'd be the mystery one in there,
Right.
and like you're stoked to see what the fuck it is.
God,
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, what is this flavor?
So like that's a super cool concept and one that we haven't executed recently. So that's something that we need to go back to. And I think I have the perfect product for it too.
That's
So,
me. I'm hammering you with
yes.
shape commercials.
No man, but see it's valuable. But what's funny, right, is that like I said, you're so deep in this stuff and you're so up close to every aspect of what your brand and your business does every day that often you lose sight of these
Oh,
more
100%.
romantic, nostalgic, idealistic.
Well, because you're also not the end user. You're not the
Ideas.
person having fun with it. You're
Right.
the person creating it for
Right.
the purpose of
Right.
monetizing,
Right.
and because you want to further the brand and
Of course.
the knowledge of it.
Of course.
So, like for me, I'm an end user because I use them.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm also like a retailer because
Yeah.
we sell it.
Yeah.
But like I'm a customer still.
Yeah, sure,
So I
sure.
enjoy
Of
that
course.
aspect of my relationship.
No, and that's so like that feedback is so valuable. Like there's no way I'm gonna walk out of here and not thinking like, man, I got a big time to do
I
a
got,
shake.
I got a few things I
and
gotta
then
do.
and then wow, wouldn't it be great to do a mystery drop soon? Like and those are undeniable facts, and it's like, but they're things that I might lose sight of because I'm so
Right.
deep in it. Every
Oh, yeah.
day. I'm up so close
Yeah,
to it
you're
that I
zoomed
can
in.
see.
I'm zoomed out.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and it's like so like the mystery drop concept is one that's really cool and unique for us,
Yeah,
for
it's
our
fun.
industry, for our
I
brand.
will like I get to see our athletes in our gyms that are G code athletes. Like they'll try to guess what it is.
Yeah.
And like every once in a while, he'll be like, "You already know what it is. But I'm not gonna tell you." But like, so I don't say shit.
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
still ordering it.
Right. Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah.
So we'll bring that back soon. And I think I have a good idea for a good product to bring back with.
I
So
love it.
Created here on the show.
yes, yes. The product is already in the works, but the
Bosu Berry
the
Premium.
right time to bring it back with the mystery drop. I think
No, that's awesome.
Tony just planted the seed. So
Fuck yeah, man.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Greg, thanks
Yo,
for coming on. We
man,
appreciate you.
Thank you so
Fuck
much.
yeah, man.
What an honor and pleasure, man.
Like
it
the
got
video,
deep. It
subscribe
got
to the
deep,
channel.
man.
Yeah.
It got deep in some moments.
See you
man.
next time.
See you guys.
Peace.